12 miles west of Wilson is the Niagara Bar, where the Niagara River flows into Lake Ontario. It's the perfect storm of nutrient-rich water, which attracts schools of baitfish and big salmon. And they're here for one reason: to pack on the pounds. You won't find a higher concentration of kings in the Great Lakes than right here, right now. The fishing can be challenging. Unpredictable currents can throw off your presentation. My clients expect me to put fish in the boat. Knowing the speed and temperature at depth is always important, but here it's imperative. If you don't have a fish hawk, you're dead in the water. Now, Fishhawk is charging ahead. The new Lithium series incorporates 4 decades of experience with the lithium power anglers expect in modern electronics. The maintenance-free probe is 40% smaller and has an internal lithium polymer battery that provides a weekend's worth of fishing on a single charge. Wireless smart charging recharges the probe in minutes. Optional Bluetooth communication and probe depth are also available. I wouldn't dream of fishing without a Fishhawk. And now with the new Lithium series, Fishhawk electronics are better than ever.
Good afternoon. We are live from the Greater Niagara Fishing Expo. It is day 2 of the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast Roadshow, and we're joined today. First co-host Trevor Sumption and Anthony Woodcroft from the Big One Cup 8.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have
you.
you.
It's exciting.
Well, I think the best thing, and I've just seen you on Instagram forever, but I'd really like you to kind of get into your brand story and how you got started with the Big One Cup 8.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we talked yesterday a little bit about it. So it's an interesting story. I started fishing the Great Lakes a while ago, actually coming to this show back in 2016 to the Salmon School. Pete Alex was one of the speakers. There was another Pete from Oswego that spoke there, and another gentleman from Michigan. And they started talking about the alewife and the alewife population within Lake Ontario. And I was, got my brain going, thinking of, different bait to use, and the fact that alewife cut bait is currently not really available in the Great Lakes. So after that year, we started running alewife cut bait. And we were having a lot of success with it. We were, doing really well with the product. And then, people started requesting to have it in, be more available in stores and stuff like that. And then so eventually we had to come out with a brand. And that year, unfortunately, my father passed away. His name was Gord. And we were trying to think of a brand to come out with on the bait. Originally, it was, around herring something. And then my dad passed away, and I was just searching Gordo online, and El Gordo. So when I searched El Gordo, it came up, and it's actually a term of endearment for in Latin, and it's the big one. And it's also a big lottery down south, and it's literally the big one. If you Google it, El Gordo, it's the big one. And so I reached out to my brother-in-law, who's a children's book artist, and I asked him if he can do me some type of logo. He's also a graphic designer. And I asked him if he can put me some type of logo together. And within 10 or 15 minutes, he literally sent us this logo right here.
Yeah.
This is a picture of my dad.
Yeah.
And the big one is Gordo, and it's my dad's name. So that's literally what it is.
Wow.
And it came. I didn't even. It was like perfect, done, and we rolled with it. So it all worked out. Yeah.
But that's pretty cool. For the record, I believe that Gord is the most Canadian name.
Right. Gord Pizer is my hero.
That's Chris's hero. Is Gord Pizer
my heroes.
The writer for
Ontario Doors.
Yeah. So that's Chris's hero. So that's that's the most Canadian name of all time. I love it.
Yeah. So that's kind of how the brand started, and then we just kind of evolved from there. We started coming out with a few different products. So we have herring cut bait available now. We also have alewife cut bait available. We have these UV lights, which are cool. They help charge our baits, our products. Our products are the only ones that glow in the dark. So it's a all natural cut bait. They come in packs of 5. The herring does. The alewife comes in packs of 4. They're preserved in a way that they won't wash out, they won't spoil, they won't rot, and they can catch multiple fish. So it's really cool.
So these obviously don't need to be refrigerated.
They don't need to be refrigerated. We
Really?
suggest to keep them chilled and cold and in the freezer until you're ready to use them, just to maintain that freshness. But they will withstand temperatures. You can leave them, like if you have a tournament, for example,
Yeah.
and you're there for a week or 4 days. You don't need to worry about your cooler thawing
Cool.
out and the bait spoiling or rotting. So that's one of our major points of difference. People don't really believe it until they try it and see it. When they run it as well, like you can literally run this stuff for like 3-4 hours. It will not rot. It won't wash out. They call it washing out.
Yeah.
It won't wash out at all. The bait won't separate from the skin.
Wow.
It's really an interesting formula we got going down, and it really worked. And that's why people were requesting it. Back in the day, this is back in 2017, 2016. And then, eventually we started cutting more herring just to meet the demands of the consumers. A lot of people really like using Pacific herring. It's great. It's a great product. We get this from the West Coast. It's very consistent. The meat is very durable as well, so you can take multiple fish with it. There's the scales are all intact for the most part. With some of the brining process.
It's really bright. I mean, even in the package, it's really bright.
Yeah, and then in 2019 we came out with glow in the dark. So that was kind of the thing that really kind of, I guess, helped the bait take off more around the Great Lakes, especially in Michigan. So we have glow in the dark in a variety of different colors available. So at the show we brought green, so a chartreuse green, and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So these are our UV lights. We have them on our website. They come with a 3.7 volt lithium rechargeable battery.
Yep.
They come with a charger and also the light. So you basically you touch the product with the light, and it glows in the dark.
And how long will that glow last? I mean, typically with a UV charge like that?
Yeah, at least like three hours.
Oh, wow.
There'll be a hue coming off it for about 3-4 hours. But yeah, we fish a lot of low light conditions with salmon fishing early in the morning, even late at night, and so it makes a huge difference. Everyone
I gotta have one of these for ice fishing.
Yeah, ice
I'm
fishing.
gonna come buy one of those for you.
Yeah,
Those things are, yeah, I mean, that's crazy bright where you can actually see it glowing, here. I had no idea. That's really cool.
So it's really cool. We're the only ones that are doing it in the world. We were the original doing this type of product with the glow in the dark. We were the original alewife cut bait as well. So we're really proud of that. And the colors are.
So you don't have to tell me this is if it's a trade secret, but where do you source your bait from? I mean, are you working with like commercial
So we're
catchers, or how do you get your actual?
So our bait is sourced from the West Coast. So
okay.
It's a Rise Davies herring is the herring that we use.
Okay.
It's commercially sourced. So what they do is they catch the fish in nets. They put them in different pens in the ocean. They starve them for like a couple weeks. So it takes all the stuff out of their stomachs. So their stomachs are nice and clean. So you want that when you're using when you're using it for bait, because the stomachs will turn soft if there's anything inside the stomach. After a certain amount of days, when the fish is thawed out, the stomach will start to rot and turn really soft. So
Interesting.
you want to get everything out of the stomach. So that's what they do on their side. They within the pen process, they then electroshock them so they die right away. There's no flopping around. So that helps retain the scales. Then they take it from that and they put them on, they flash freeze them flat. So they flash freeze them all individually. So that helps maintain the scale content and preserves makes the best quality of bait. So that's
super cool.
Those are the suppliers that we use.
And the alewife that comes from the Pacific
alewife
as well?
is actually on the East Coast.
On the East Coast. Okay.
Yeah. So as you know, alewife are an invasive species in the Great Lakes. You guys have talked a lot about it.
Yeah.
That's that going to the salmon school, I learned about the alewife, how they came into the Great Lakes, how the alewife really are the reason why salmon are in the Great Lakes, to help control the population. So it's kind of
super cool.
Yeah.
So how much fishing did you do with it before you said it's time to bring this to the world?
Oh man, I was fishing with my father when I was a little kid, maybe 6 years old. So 35 years. I've been fishing with my father, fishing the Great Lakes. I started fishing the Great Lakes more in the early 2000s. Fishing with my father. We were never really serious about it. I met a few people that were the Great Ontario Salmon Derby, the Silver Salmon Challenge. Those derbies were around back then when I first started as well, and I would buy a ticket and I'd get out for a few days throughout the season. And then as it got into kind of mid like 2010, 2012, I started going out on my own more. Bought my own boat, and I met a few other people that were serious salmon fishermen, and they are the ones who recommended to come down to this show and go to the salmon school. And from that, the bug I took right off. I learned about your product. That was one of the other big things. The Fish Hawk was a huge game changer for me, and really understanding the temperature and how it plays a role, where the fish are, how to locate the fish, also the speed as well. And that was a huge thing for me. So yeah, I learned.
So you actually formed your company coming to the show. I mean, that was kind of like the start of it.
The evolution of it.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool. I mean, that's like,
and it's like grassroots. Like this is
exactly
grassroots of like how these things evolve. And if you come to this show, you see all the different vendors here. There's a whole bunch of different custom tackle manufacturers, a whole bunch of different small independent businesses here. It's a really cool thing to see. Unique products that you can't really find in big box stores. So that's why shows like this are so important for our industry and for growing the knowledge, I guess, and helping people catch more fish. Like that's what I think, anyways. And that's really the goal, and that's what we're trying to do on the Canadian side. Shout out to Canada.
Yeah.
We're really trying to get the tournaments going and trying to get more people involved, and it's really cool. Some of the stuff that's going on up there.
So how big a crew do you have helping you ship and all that kind of stuff?
Man, so my mom's here. She's been with me since day one, helping me out. So she helps me cut. She helps me at some of these shows. This is actually the first time being at this specific show, but she comes. She helps me label the packaging. My uncle's help. It's literally like a family thing. My cousin helps cut and trim. And then we also have some other employees that help us with the filleting process. All hand cut. That's the other thing I didn't mention. It's all hand filleted.
Now, do you guys do that here, or is that in other?
We all do. Yes.
You do the cutting and everything here. Yourselves.
Wow. Yeah, we do it all.
You get bulk bait and then you cut the fillets.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's pretty.
We process it. We treat it. We trim it into this specific shape. So this shape, actually, I should have brought a bait head, but this shape was designed. So they're consistent across the board. Every piece is the exact same taper and shape. And this taper we designed to help to ensure that the bait head that you're using is imparting the action on the bait. You don't want the bait to sag or drag. You want the bait to roll. And if you come by the booth, we have a video looping of the roll that you want to see when you're running the bait. And the way we designed our products is to fit perfectly within all the bait manufacturers' meat heads. So it fits with Dreamweaver, fits with Musclehead, fits with John King heads, fits with all Rise Davies heads.
So no more trimming.
No more trimming is needed. Actually, there is. We don't shy away from trimming if it's necessary. So if you think about the variety of spoons that are available, like just the size and like mag spoons, smaller stinger spoons, stuff like that, smaller profile spoons, and that's to match the hatch, right? So to match the bait fish in that area at the particular time. So you mentioned about no trimming. You don't need to necessarily trim it, but don't be afraid if you're not getting bit to trim, a little bit off the top and just cut it straight across the nose and slide it back into the bait head. You have just
smaller profile.
Profile, a little bit shorter bait, and that's just to match the hatch. And that's kind of that's the idea.
Okay, I have a strange question. So when people ask me, you meet somebody for the first time that doesn't know what you do, and I get this question all the time. It makes my wife crazy, but they're like, well, what do you do for a living? And I just have resorted to saying, well, I sell fish hooks, because if I say, well, I sell speed and temperature probes for downriggers, they look at me like, what in the hell are you talking about? So
the fish nerd thing we were talking about.
So what do you say?
It's I literally say I make fishing lures. So I just say it like that.
Simple enough.
Yes.
Okay.
Fishing lures, and then they're like, oh, what type of lures? And then I kind of get into it. it's hard to really describe until you see it. And the glow in the dark is one. That's why I wanted to bring the packs to show you guys the glow in the dark thing. But yeah, I just say fishing lures.
Okay.
Leave it simple like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
So it says right at the top of the package here, not for human consumption. Is that a big point of emphasis for you guys? seeing people just frying these up?
So it's funny, and as soon as you said that, I started giggling. But there's this guy. So I got a lot of great supporters and a lot of friends that I've been able to make with this bait, and a lot of people I've been able to meet. And so one of the captains that I've been befriended and known for a few years now, he loves our product. He sent me this video. It's a French captain, and it was where the French port is. So it's in Coburg. One of the guys sent the video, and they all chipped in, and they paid the guy to eat a strip, and they took a video of him eating a strip on camera. And it was hilarious. And I don't know if the guy made it okay, if he made it back to port, but
they put a light on him and he glowed in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. He was definitely drinking that day too, though, so that could have had a part in him like trying it. I don't know what he was thinking, but it was pretty funny when I saw it.
So your home port is Bluffers
in
Toronto.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about fishing there with the Big One Cup bait.
Yeah, so Bluffs is one of the best spots on the lake, in my opinion. It's got a great structure on it. It's got the big reef just outside of the port. Basically goes from where the Bluffs west towards Toronto. There's a huge ledge there. The fish like to congregate there. There's a nice current that seems to always come across that ledge. A lot of nice color in the water. There's some affluent flows that are coming out from the city that seem to always attract fish along that structure, and a lot of big fish are caught along the bluffs. If you look at the leaderboards for the big salmon derbies, especially in the first couple weeks of the derby through July, Bluffers Park is usually up there with
where they're at.
full of fish. Yeah. East side is actually starting to pump out some giants. You guys have seen some of those big fish that caught up. That 42 pounder that was caught a couple years ago. That was absolutely massive out of Coburg. So it's a pretty cool thing going on in the North Shore. They got a lot of natural reproduction up there with the salmon. I think that's what's really bringing a lot of those really big mature salmon back to those areas, those natural tributaries that are flowing into the lake.
Hey, Cory Goldsworthy, if you're listening, try to jump out and jump back in. I saw you on there. Oh, there you are. He's ready to go. Just wanted to make sure he's okay. I saw a gray screen there. Tell me about fishing there, though. I mean, it's Toronto. I mean, Bluffers is in Toronto, and it can be a pretty busy port. So what's that like out there fishing on a July day?
It can be bumper boats out there for sure. You gotta keep your head up, head on a swivel all the time. You gotta watch out for people's planer boards and people dodging in and out. If you're not following the proper line, you definitely have to be careful. I'm usually fishing with people that aren't really that experienced. I take my friends and family out. They're not as hardcore as us from a fishing perspective. So, I'm kind of responsible for controlling all the rods and for the most part. And I usually try and keep away from the crowds just to avoid any tangles and stuff. But the crowds are there because the fish are there. There's a lot of fish there sometimes too. So yeah, it's really cool to see. Like I've had family come that have been out of town for years. They've come back, and whenever I can reconnect with my family, we usually go out for fish, like out in the water for a day. And it's amazing to see how they look at Toronto from the outside. Like it's not, there's no hustle and bustle besides some days where you get a lot of bumper boats, especially on the weekends. But looking at Toronto, and especially when the sun starts to rise from the east, the sun is reflecting off the buildings. It's a really cool experience. Yeah, and you see the big city there, and you're literally out in the lake, and you do not hear any.
Yeah, it's like fishing in Chicago. The same kind of vibe where it's like you got this great big cosmopolitan, modern city, and
it's funny because like majority of people have no idea what's in Lake Ontario and the salmon that are there. Like fish are incredible, and it's literally a world-class salmon fishery that majority of people in Toronto have no idea about. I would put it up against the West Coast for sure with quality of salmon.
Yeah, I think that's without question. I mean, you talk to somebody that fishes on the West Coast, the number of bites that we get here in the Great Lakes. I mean, West Coast, you get your one fish for the day and you put your rod down, you're done. In a lot of fisheries where, you can get 30 bites a morning or whatever that, I mean, yeah, it is.
Really, we're so lucky to have that. And, a lot of the organizations around the lake, a lot of volunteers that put their time into this fishery. It's really like built from that level. Yeah. And so many people are, they make a living on it. A lot of charter captains, a lot of tackle companies. Tackle.
You, me, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's a really cool thing, and it all started with the L-wide. If you think about it,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's really neat. Yeah.
Hey, let's we got Cory ready to go here, but a couple questions come in. Let's just do lightning round here. How much is the light from Anthony Ellis?
The light is $20. So it comes with a light. It zooms in and out. I like to put this in my pocket actually when I'm at the back of the boat. It saves having another box. A lot of guys have these UV boxes or UV cups that they plug in. For me, I prefer this because I literally put it in my pocket. I can slide it in and out of my pocket. It's nice and compact. It's got this rechargeable battery. There's a charger that comes with it, a little wrist strap as well. We use this to charge the like flasher
spoons,
and baits as well. But yeah, it's $20.
Hottest color.
Hottest color. Oh man, so we sell a lot of natural, which is literally like the scales and our UV pigmentation. That's the other thing I didn't mention. So we add UV pigmentation to everything. So whether it's natural or the glows, the UV.
Get that UV reflection.
Yeah,
reflection.
In the natural is not as bright as the glow strips, but there is a green hue that comes off it. So color-wise, best color. I would say the green glow. But 2 years ago we came out with this one. It's called the Yellowtail. So you can kind of see just the tip is glow in the dark, and you can kind of see there it's kind of glowing. So
it's one of my favorite sayings, just the tip. All right.
We'll keep going here. But
Shelf life. What's the shelf life?
So in the freezer, it will last a couple of years. If it's a sealed pack, it will last a couple of years in the freezer. Yeah.
All right. Very good, Anthony. Really appreciate you stopping by.
That was super cool. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Congratulations. Nice job, man. I mean, it looks great.
I'll come and see you later. I got to pick up a few things.
Cool.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, gentlemen.
All right. We've got Cory Goldsworthy waiting in the green room for us. We're going to pop on our headphones so we can hear him talking.
Hey, Cory.
Good afternoon from Minnesota. How are you guys?
Yeah. So we leave Minnesota and then talk to somebody from Minnesota. Yeah, right. Kind of ironic. So
that's right. Yeah.
Good to have you on. It sounds like we got a little bit of snow back home right after we left. So I think we got out of town right at the right time.
Yeah, there was a band that came through central Minnesota, but up here in Duluth, it's still brown. So
is it?
Yeah.
Odd winter. Very odd
crazy winter. Yeah, for sure.
Well, let's talk some Lake Superior. That's a place near and dear to your heart. It's near and dear to my heart, and obviously near to us. So what's going on in Lake Superior these days? Just give us kind of a 10,000-foot view.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what a difference a year makes, right? Or a few years. We come off of 2022-23, which was, the winters that would never end, the summers that would never start, cold springs. And here we are in 2023, 2024, and it feels more like late March than it does mid-February here in Duluth. So very different years, but for a 10,000-foot view, we're really excited on Lake Superior that we have a huge Cisco year class that has come through from 2022. Cisco, lake herring, tullibee, all the same fish, just a different name depending on where you are and where you're fishing. If you're fishing Lake Superior, it's lake herring or Cisco. If you're inland, they're tullibee, but all the same fish. And they're native to Lake Superior, native prey fish, really important for lake trout consumption. And what we've seen through time is we know Cisco spawn every year. We know the eggs hatch every year, but it's not every year that those those newly hatched fish will live to be age 1. If they can live to be age 1, we know we'll see them in 4 years in the commercial fishery as adults, spawning adults. At that time, they're about 15 inches average. So in 2022, with that cold spring, the stars aligned, and we put off a year class of Cisco that we haven't seen in Lake Superior since the USGS has been doing the survey that monitors prey fish population since 1978. The last big year class event that we had was like epic year class was 1984. The last, what we would consider a good year class, was 2003. And then we've had really small year classes in 05, 09, 2012, 13, 14, but nothing to really like just put in a good plug of prey fish and energy into the system. So that's a huge bonus. Everybody's looking forward to it. All the predators are out there. They got the feed bags on. We caught a record coho, state record coho salmon was caught last year. Actually, two pretty much in the same day were caught. So all the predators are reacting to the food source in Lake Superior, which typically Lake Superior is food limited compared to any of the other Great Lakes. So
Yeah, it's a pretty sterile environment, and when you have that kind of epic class of new bait fish coming in, what causes that? How do you end up with a class like what are the dynamics that go into getting that class of bait fish all coming in one shot?
boy, if we could come up with that answer, it would be fantastic, right? I mean, Mark Vincent, Dan Ewell at the USGS in Ashland, Wisconsin, have put in a lot of time and effort and work into researching environmental factors that lead to these Cisco production events. And a lot of other researchers have as well, and there's still ongoing research going into it. And historically, we had thought that it was ice cover. So if we had an ice cover event, typically we would see some sort of recruitment event for Cisco, right? But 2014 rolls around, that was the polar vortex year, massive ice cover. You know, as fisheries managers on Lake Superior, we're all, you know, here it comes, this is going to be it, huge year class. And there was a year class, but it wasn't really like the size of 2003 or 1984. So it's not just the physical nature of having an ice cover event. And 2022 rolls around, and cold spring temperatures. We had record snowfall here in Duluth. Our steelhead run that usually starts April 1st was pushed off to May 1st, so a month late in pretty much everything. And that cold water hung around even into June. And so it seems like Mark Vincent has a great presentation on kind of the historical record of Cisco, water temperatures, ice cover events, all of the factors that everybody's kind of thought lead to a recruitment event for Cisco. And it seems like those June water temperatures are critical. So they have to be cold, and not just cool, they have to be cold. And so the prevailing thought is that those cold spring water temperatures are allowing it's what's called the match mismatch hypothesis. So those cold spring temperatures are allowing Cisco hatch and zooplankton or some sort of external food source to occur at the same time, because as those fish hatch out of the eggs, they have a yolk sac. They can live off that yolk sac for a certain period of time. When they use up that yolk sac, there has to be an external food source for them to feed on, otherwise they starve. And that's what we think is occurring with this cold water that stretches into June, is that it's allowing that timing of hatching, egg sac absorption, and then an external food source available to allow those fish to now survive and grow. And then not only do you need cold water in the spring, you also need warm enough water in the summer, so like after July, to allow those fish to grow and want to keep feeding. So it seems like it's all the planets have to align, all the stars have to align, and here we go. We've got a year class event, but honestly, the last year class event that we had like this in '84, it really fed the fishery, the commercial fishery, for 20 years. So these things can live upwards of 30 plus years. And we've seen them as old as, you know, the mid 30s, even close to 40. So once they come off, I mean, we're in a good spot for, 15, 20 years. We're hoping now with the high abundance of lake trout that we have that everything's not getting eaten, but we'll see.
So by that hypothesis, then you would maybe predict that coming off of this winter where we've got no ice cover, way crazy warm average temperatures, that maybe we would not see good recruitment coming
Correct.
out of 23.
Correct. Yep. That's
Interesting.
pretty much how everybody's feeling right now is with these warm winters. We're just not going to
It's
see it.
funny. It's funny, you know, traveling around to all the different lakes. Like Lake Superior is so much different than the other lakes. So like when we go to Lake Michigan, and I'm talking to fish now, of course, but when we go to Lake Michigan or Lake Erie or Lake Ontario, so many times we're looking for cool water. Where, you know, Lake Superior being kind of my, you know, home port, you know, if we're fishing in Lake Superior, we're looking for warm water. So it's
Right.
everything like it's flipped upside down when you fish Lake Superior. So
Yeah, and especially in the
Yeah.
springs, right? You're looking for
Yeah.
38-degree water temperatures.
yeah, it's warm. Yeah.
Warm.
Yeah.
Cory, you had a great year last year with Coho, the 2 state records coming in. But, you know, my friend fishes out of Bayfield, Wisconsin,
Mhm.
and he said it was the best Coho year that they've ever had as well. What's going into this kind of surge of Coho action on Lake Superior?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right, on how different Lake Superior is compared to, say, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron. We see, so coho salmon haven't been stocked in Lake Superior since 2007. And that was really in just low numbers. And in Minnesota, we haven't stocked coho salmon since 1976. So these are all naturally reproducing, self-sustaining populations. We did a lake-wide diet study back in 2021. So all of the state, tribal, federal agencies got together and did a lake-wide diet studies. In Minnesota, we worked really closely with anglers to save us their carcasses, their heads and guts, so we could get a stomach sample from them and get, you know, what fish is it, what length of fish is it, get a stable isotope sample, get a genetic sample from them. And what we found from that 2021 lake-wide diet study along the North Shore of Minnesota here is, you know, the person that was the researcher that was processing the stomachs over in Michigan called me and he said, "Hey, there's something wrong with your Chinooks." I'm like, "Yeah, what's that?" He's like, "They're eating terrestrial insects." I'm like, "Well, you know, it's the North Shore. You can throw a rock out of Silver Bay and hit 300 feet of water. You know, we're not the Apostle Islands that are shallow, warm, reproductive, or productive. Have a lot of bait fish. You know, that's why the brown trout fishery over there works very well for them. We're the North Shore where, I mean, you step out of any of our ports, you're in pelagic water, you're in open water. So it really wasn't a surprise to me that our Chinooks were primarily feeding on terrestrial insects in 2021. It was a low smelt year. It wasn't a Cisco reproduction year. But those coho salmon, you know, they have a little bit more variable diet than Chinooks do, right? Chinooks in Lake Michigan, like what, 95+% alewife consumption. Lake Superior, it varies. Like ours, like I said, terrestrial insects, if there's no fish around. Cohos will, you know, they're able to eat smelt as well, which our Chinooks do. But feeding on mysis, feeding on zooplankton, feeding on other things that are available to them. And you bring lake trout into the fold, and lake trout will eat anything, right? I mean, we've seen snakes, grouse feet, bratwursts, grain, barley. I mean, lake trout they're glacial relic. They're made to survive pretty darn harsh conditions, and they do very well. That's why Lake Superior works so well for them. So the Chinook thing, you know, they're naturally reproducing. They're doing it all on their own. They're taking advantage of the resources that are available to them in Lake Superior. And the same thing with Chinooks. That's why our Chinooks numbers are much lower than, say, our coho salmon population, because we don't have alewife populations. They're present in Lake Superior, but they're not in any population to be utilized as a prey fish by predators.
We're getting a few questions, and you know, a lot of these guys are Lake Ontario guys, so they're going to be a little surprised, I think, when they hear this number. But what was the record coho size for Lake Superior?
I believe it was 10.09 pounds or 10.9 pounds.
Yeah, little bit different fishery than Lake Ontario. Not quite the forage days.
I'm gonna put my plug in though for the home waters, and that's that a Lake Superior coho is like the best eating on the face of the planet.
It lives in a cooler.
Yeah, I mean they are so. I mean cohos are good everywhere, but a Lake Superior coho is next level. So
yeah, don't tell anyone, right?
Yeah, I know.
It lives in a cooler.
And honestly, I mean, we've got shore fishermen right now that are catching cohos from shore, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, when we kind of shifted our rainbow trout stocking strategy away from Kamloops strain, which was a domesticated nearshore strain, we got rid of that because there was some genetic introgression going on with naturalized steelhead. You know, we got quite a bit of feedback from anglers that, you know, we're taking away shore fishing opportunities for folks that don't have big boats, or right. And what we're seeing now is, at that time I said, I'm an angler. I know anglers. They're resourceful people. If there's fish there, they'll figure out how to catch them. And what we're seeing is, you know, that coho fishery, that shore coho fishery is still going. And right now, folks are figuring out how to catch the wild naturalized strains of steelhead in Lake Superior from shore here too. I just talked to an 85-year-old guy that's been fishing up off the middle shore from shore, and he's got 37 plus already this winter.
Oh, wow.
You know, I mean, so they're hooking into them. They're figuring it out. So that near shore fishery, that shoreline fishery is still kicking for us too, which is great.
Interesting.
You were talking a little bit about forage earlier. We were talking a lot about the Cisco. Someone asking about rainbow smelt and how those affect fish growth on Lake Superior.
Yeah. So rainbow smelt are the primary prey fish in Lake Superior the majority of the time. I think when the USGS crunched the numbers, 2023, when these fish were 1 year old, that was the first time in the history of that survey that native prey fish were more abundant than non-native rainbow smelt, right? So since sea lamprey invaded Lake Superior and had an impact on the lake trout population in about 1954, crashed the population there. Our Cisco population crashed shortly thereafter. That's when rainbow smelt in Lake Superior really took off. No top level predator. Your other niche zooplankton in Cisco were pretty much gone. So they really had an open resource to themselves, and they took off. Their populations boomed. Experienced die-off similar to the AOI die-offs in Michigan and Huron and other places. And since then, we've rebuilt that lake trout population where we think we're at essentially equilibrium. We think we've almost topped out at how many lake trout we can produce. With this Cisco boom, maybe that's changing our perception a little bit. I think it's changing mine, I know. But that huge lake trout population is really suppressing rainbow smelt populations, which is what we want to see, because we know that rainbow smelt also feed on larval Cisco, right? And especially here in Minnesota, the Cisco commercial fishery is our bread and butter. We don't have a lot of lake whitefish. Our lake trout commercial fishery is really restricted. So that Cisco fishery is the bread and butter fishery for our commercial operators here. So we want to maintain a high native predator base and a high native prey fish base, because for the resilience of the system, for the resilience of the fishery, that's the most stable population to have. Native top level native predator, top level native prey fish.
Cory, last question. What do you see as the fishing outlook for 2024 on the North Shore of Minnesota? What can anglers expect to see?
I think it's going to be really good again this year. I'm anticipating big Chinooks. I think last year we didn't have a lot of Chinooks in the system. I was catching some pink salmon and out of two harbors, and in one of the days I caught a couple of pink salmon, put them in the live well, and when I got them home I was cleaning them, and I looked at the one and I said, that's not a pink salmon, and it was about a 15-inch Chinook. And like I said, everybody's got the feed bag on there. So for a younger Chinook to be that size for Lake Superior was pretty impressive. So I'm anticipating those Chinooks that were smaller last year are going to be really good size this year. I anticipate we're going to have big cohos coming up this summer again. Our steelhead, I've got numbers or talked to the same old guy up the middle shore fishing from shore. He said he caught one of the biggest steelhead bucks that he's ever seen fishing his entire life on Lake Superior. So I think with all the food that's out there and all these predators out there chowing out, it's going to be a good year for fishing. And our lake trout are always good. They're taking advantage of the same Cisco population that's coming through, and their numbers are going to be great. We're going to see some great growth out of those this year as well.
All right, Cory, really appreciate you coming on and joining us today. And again, thanks for everything you do for the fishery as well. Really good to talk to you.
Anytime. Great to be back. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Cory.
Cory Goldsworthy from the Minnesota DNR. Really appreciate him coming on. We got some announcements going on in the background, but I think you guys can still hear us. Hey, we've got another giveaway today. We're going to go ahead and pull that up. Let me drop it on the screen here for you a second. Today's hashtag is just going to be hashtag fishhawk. So if you want to win that fishhawk stickers, hat, maybe kind of some swag, I think we'll throw some fish towels and all that kind of stuff in. Just go ahead and put hashtag fishhawk in the comments, and you will be entered for that drawing. So let's bring in our next guest. It's Mark McCown. He's hanging out here in the green room. Come around that way, Mark. There's no wires over there. We got lots of wires over here.
Hopefully we're done with the airport announcements now.
Yeah,
So.
lots of announcements
Wow.
going behind us.
That was
Very loud.
That was loud.
Mark, how you doing?
Very good. How are you?
Great. You can just kind of let this hang out, and that will get you that way. We were putting it on and off people yesterday, and it was just causing problems, and we've discovered that we just leave it right there. It works really good. So it's day 2 of the show here. How's things going here in the show in the Garmin booth?
I think the show's going very well. Yesterday, for a Thursday, I thought it was very good. Some really good questions from consumers. LiveScope is still the buzzword, without a doubt. And just more and more people getting into LiveScope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we first came out with LiveScope in 2018. 6 years we've had LiveScope, and we introduced LiveScope Plus in 2022, and it just keeps getting better. I see now more and more fishermen putting 2, 3, some 4 LiveScopes, one on every corner.
It's crazy.
Wow,
It's crazy. It's
unbelievable. The money that a fisherman will spend
Just to catch a stupid
just to
fish.
catch a fish. That's right. And it's funny because I still hear, especially older people, in which I'm one of, but I don't believe that
Young at heart.
They say it's not fair, but it still doesn't catch the fish. You still got to catch them. I have days out there where that LiveScope shows me just how bad a fisherman I am, and you can see them swimming around following your baits, and they're just not even.
Yeah.
one of the things that maybe I have a different perspective, as an electronics manufacturer, but like Garmin's pace of innovation is just mind blowing to me. I mean, what's new this year as far as product goes? I know, and I've seen a few things. What's kind of the latest and greatest?
This year we announced our new EchoMap Ultra 2s with higher definition displays, faster microprocessors, fantastic operating system, the new Garmin Electronics Plus cartographers building right from the factory. They come with the GT56 transducer. I mean, they're just phenomenal products, and they're not overpriced.
Yeah.
In Miami, just this week, we introduced a new GPS map 1643. So it's a lower cost 16-inch unit. It's got a great screen. And there's like $1,200 in our GPS.
Wow. And that's something we could see on Great Lakes boat. I mean, that'd be a nice fit on a Great Lakes
16-inch screen.
Yeah.
You're talking my language, man.
One thing I learned a long time ago: people don't buy smaller TVs.
No. That's right.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think it's been a challenge for boat manufacturers. Like, how do we build dashes to accommodate these screens? Because I mean, honestly, think about it. It wasn't that long ago. A 9-inch screen was a big screen, and now it's like, I don't want that. I mean, I want, yeah.
I've had the opportunity to be in this business as a paper glass and flat. Now, I remember when we first came out with liquid crystals, the screens were this big.
Right.
And people were satisfied with that. Now a 16-inch screen is not big enough.
Right.
And it just goes on and on and on, and people are buying it. It's unreal to go to some of these tournaments and see how many screens are on one boat. I don't care if it's a walleye boat, trout and salmon boat, fast boat, crappie boats. I mean, there's just multiple screens all around the boat. That's good for us.
Yeah.
And the products really do work good.
We get this question a lot, and you've answered it for us before. But if I'm setting up a Great Lakes boat to troll with Panoptics, what's the setup? What's the configuration that I want to tell somebody to go look for? PS30 transducer.
You can steer it back, you can see the river, you can see the fish coming in around the edge. It's really difficult. A lot of guys are doing it. More and more every year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
It's really fun. If you're a professional charter fisherman, it's really amazing to see consumers standing glued to that screen.
Right.
They have a blast.
Right.
Seeing these fish coming in.
It's almost like ice fishing, where you've got, you're seeing your lure and you're seeing fish react to the lure. And you talk to the anglers that are using it, and just being able to judge a fish's reaction to speed changes or presentations, colors. Yeah. Pretty amazing.
A whole lot smarter fishermen when they can see the fish out there and they're not like, you got to find a way to get them to bite.
If you got any questions for Mark at Garmin, go ahead and drop in the comments, and we'd love to see him. Looks like Meat Man.
Meat Man had a good Christmas.
Real good Christmas. Added the PS30 and the Fishhawk X4 to the boat for Christmas.
Nice.
Thank you, Santa. Wish the season would get here soon.
Good, it won't be long now.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
So if you got a question for Mark, go ahead and drop it in. But you're talking about those LCD screens and how they're teeny tiny, and those things were gray and white, you know.
Black and white. You couldn't see them in the sun very well, but it's just progressive. You kept getting better and better and better and better. Now, I mean, what we have today is just unbelievable. It's super high definition displays, full color, sunlight viewable. You can see them with your polarized glasses on. I mean, the advances have just been incredible.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, though. I know Garmin and a lot of the other electronics manufacturers too. When you buy your unit, there's a lot of different color palettes to choose from. How does someone, if they are thinking about getting in there and playing around and really kind of refining what they do, what do you recommend as far as color palettes?
That is a personal preference. I mean, some of the color palettes that I like, other people don't. That's why there's so many different ones. You know, nobody buys the same color car. Not like in the old days when Ford said you can have any color you want.
As long as it's black, yeah.
Now you can pick a multitude of colors. It's a personal preference.
Yeah. So no, like
There's no
you're
performance
not like, hey,
advantage.
this is a good one if you're going to be out in the daytime. This is a good one if you're out in bright light or anything like
I
that.
personally like amber. I think I can see it better in all lighting situations. It's one I always go to.
Okay.
I've tried the other ones just sort of for grins and giggles, but
We're just going to hook that right up to you.
There we go.
There you go.
there is a multitude of color palettes, that's for sure.
Mark, we got somebody asking about lithium power. What batteries do you recommend for units?
Again, I mean, that's a personal preference. I'm still using AGMs in my own personal boat. 100 amp hour AGMs. I got two in series that I run my electronics off of, my live scope and my cranking battery. I mean, lithiums are great batteries. I know they'll last a whole lot longer. You can go several days without having to recharge them, where the lead acid, you got to charge them every day. Lithiums now are coming down in price too. I mean, look at them when you get the next one.
Yeah. I think that's pretty common where as our AGMs or our regular lead acid batteries age out, I think there's going to be a whole lot of folks that are looking to upgrade to lithium for the next go around.
Yeah. Lithium is definitely a plus for sure.
Yeah.
The one thing I would like to say too, some fishermen I talk to claim that they have higher voltage going to the live scope and can get a better picture. That is totally false. There's a voltage regulator inside the black box, and it's not going to.
So it's not going to let you put more voltage into it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I hear guys say, I'm sorry, that's not true. Oh yes, it's not.
Yeah.
Is this going to make sure you don't overpower and burn it up?
Tell me about, in our neck of the woods, when we think of Garmin Live Scope in Minnesota, we think of ice fishing. And then I know a lot of guys are using it to drop shot walleyes. A lot of guys are using it for muskies. But this is a trolling room. This room's full of guys who are doing trolling. Talk about how you can use it in a trolling application.
Well, that's why I say the PS30, the original Panoptic, is the way you want to go for trolling. It really is. It's still the best way to go.
How does it work? Can you just kind of...
It's square like this, and we can steer it electronically back behind the boat, so you can see those riggers, downrigger balls, and you see what you're kind of going around.
How shallow would you be able to use in that application with a PS30? Like how if you're fishing, let's say you're fishing spring brown trout, what's your picture going to look like at that point? That's going to get tougher just because of the limited water column. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
When you start moving out deeper, that's when it really shines for fuel.
Yeah. And when we're running that beam, let's say we're out trolling in 200 feet, how much adjustment do I got to make to that, moving that around to get it?
Depends on how deep the fish are that day. You just keep adjusting until you start seeing them. See them on your graph on the traditional sonar, and you can see what depth the fish are holding.
Gotcha.
It's really slick technology.
Yeah.
What's next?
Right.
Yeah. What is next?
They don't tell us.
It's probably a good reason.
What we have now, not what we have coming tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, salesman, we can't keep our mouth shut.
Well, and for those watching, you know, that don't know Mark or don't know who Mark is, I mean, Mark is literally, you've been in this, you've been
40
in
years.
specifically in marine electronics before. I mean, we're talking pioneering units, and Mark was the guy that sold that to a whole lot of people. I mean, as far as, yeah, you've been in the game a long time.
It's been an incredible career for me. I mean, to be in an industry that you love, I don't work a day.
Yeah.
You know, people say, you want to go to those shows? I love coming to these shows and talking to
Yeah.
fishermen. I learn a lot from some of the fishermen, too.
Mhm.
So they got some ideas of sometimes, hey, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, honestly, you're kind of a role model for me because you do what you like, and if you do what you like, why would you change?
Yeah. It's like, you know, people about retirement say, now, still help.
Why? Yeah.
Still,
You're having fun.
yeah, I mean, I've been on the road now for 21 days. I've done 4 shows in 4 weeks. Doing it.
Okay, I don't want to do that many shows, but I'll stick around for a while. So you know.
And it's, you know, last week was Columbus, and it was phenomenal. It wasn't a trolling crowd there. It's more bass, walleye, muskie, and it's super busy. Fishermen, just unreal. Live scope is definitely the buzzword, and it's hard to believe it's been 6 years, and it's still like it just came out.
Yeah,
A lot of
interesting.
electronics come out, and it's real hot for a year or two, and it kind of goes away. Well, this keeps building.
Mm-hmm.
And now people go with multiple units, and it's like, man. And there's so many people that still don't have them, but they're going to get one.
Well, and I just personally, right? I mean, I don't have one yet on my boat, and like this is the year I'm like, okay, this needs to happen this year, right? I mean, I've been kind of on the sidelines, and now I'm like, yeah, this is going down. So, yeah.
And our new Kraken trolling motors, we came out with our first trolling motor, scissor mount to force several years ago, and this year we announced our Kraken, so we got longer shaft pivot mounts. And one thing they did, they made it so you could put the live scope cable through the shaft instead of having that big loop with a pivot mount where you have a chance of cutting it.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys have. This goes right up through the shaft, and it's phenomenal. It has the new dual channel GPS antenna, so the accuracy on anchor lock is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Great.
Yeah. Who would ever thought you'd have trolling motors where you could have anchor lock, heading sensors, and I mean, it's just unreal how technology is advanced.
Yeah.
I don't know how I fished without anchor lock all those years.
Yeah, it is. It's game changer. I mean, the combination of technology is what's really exciting. Just being able to use all these different tools are at your disposal, and just how much it adds to a day on the water. It makes it worth the investment. I mean, it really does.
It really does. It
Yeah.
makes it a whole lot easier to fish. It just makes it more enjoyable. I know I can put a series of waypoints on the screen of my Echo Map Ultras and say follow it, and they'll follow those waypoints and go to the point and stay on a flat. I mean, it's just incredible technology.
It is.
Mark, let's talk a little bit. I was actually really interested when you started talking about doing the sales trips and going to all these shows and talking to people. What's kind of give us a story that stands out in your mind from a fisherman coming up and just talking to you, and what's something that you tell people about? I'm sure you have stories that you tell when you're out and about. Give us a story of someone coming up and having a chat with you at a show.
Well, I know a husband and his wife came in the booth this morning here, and he doesn't have live scope. Everything he's seen on TV and on YouTube, and wanted me to explain the whole system, and they're getting ready to buy one now. And you see that all the time. And going to so many shows, you think that everybody's already got one. There's a lot of people out there that don't, just waiting.
Yeah, I would say that there's a whole lot of people that don't. You know, one thing I think, Chris, just in what we've been doing with the podcast, or really what you've been doing with the podcast for the last few years, you know, think about 4 years ago, people didn't know what a podcast was. And now we've got people of all ages, you know, young and more mature. I didn't say old, I said more mature. Young and more mature that are like, yeah, I mean, that's really cool. I mean,
You can learn a lot.
You can learn a lot.
Real fast. That's for sure.
And you probably see it in your booth with people coming up to you, and they've been doing research for years before they even walk up to you. And it's something that we see with our product too, is that, you know, when we get into those 4 figures, when we're talking about a purchase price, It's not somebody just wakes up in the morning and goes, hey, I'm going to go buy that.
Exactly.
Like they're doing a lot of research. They're watching a lot of videos on YouTube, and the consumer is very different now.
And there's so many good videos out there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Garmin's YouTube channel, we've got great videos on how to use products, how to install them, and they're done very professionally. I mean, it's great information at your fingertips. And it's free.
Yeah.
But you're right, man. People come in the booth, they know what they're looking at. They've already seen it. Just want you to tell them that they need to buy it.
Right.
Great time to be an angler, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean the information, and that's what's cool about this show specifically is like people are here to share info,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yep.
and people are here to learn, and that's why this one's so
Yeah,
fun.
that's what's good about this one. There's
Yeah.
so much knowledge to be
Right.
learned here. And as you were saying, fisheries are really good. I mean, Lake Erie with walleye fishing, perch fishing is phenomenal. Lake Ontario with the trout and salmon and the big walleyes out east. I mean, fishing is phenomenal. The Finger Lakes, they're excellent fishing. There's so many opportunities around here. It's unreal.
Yes.
All right, we got a question here from Jim Lemon. Wants to know Garmin is going to offer transducer poles for live scope for mounting on boats.
We do not, but there is a lot of options out there. I mean, Cisco makes one, Trax Tech makes one. There's so many. Cornfield Property Products makes one. If you Google it, you're going to see a lot of manufacturers pop up, and there's some really, really nice ones.
Yeah.
With some motorized ones, which I use personally. If I can steer that live scope where I want it to be, especially if I'm fishing a single piece of structure like a rock pile or a hump, I can just steer it right to it instead of having the trolling motor moving. It's just I can steer it with a little foot pedal on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of options, but personally, we don't make them.
Yeah, so that's one of the things actually Trevor and I were talking about last night with all the competing products in the live sonar, and like what are the differences and what makes one better than another. And one of the things that we talk about with Garmin is that there are just so many options, and it's one of those things that when you buy the unit, then you're also looking at poles and you're looking at different, shuttles and things like that. You as a salesperson, is that something that you work with people on as far as what pole they need to get, and if they want to go with the shuttle, where to find those different
I
options?
tell people where to go and look for them. It just depends on how they want to do it. And that's why there's so many varieties, because so many places,
So many
in the boat
boats,
that put
yeah,
so many
right.
different styles of boats. Like say, mine's motorized and it still attaches to the trolling motor, but it's independent, so I can steer that live scope transducer where I want it, and the trolling motor can still doing this. But there is a multitude of options out.
Yeah.
You just have to decide how they want to mount it, where they want to put it on their boat, and go from there.
Right.
Can I share my live scope story from last fall?
Please do.
So we were I live right off the Mississippi,
Mhm.
and we were muskie fishing last fall, and we tried to fly fish for them, and
Good luck.
yeah, oh, yeah, thank you. But anyways, my live scope story is, so you lay the cast down and you're casting these big flies that are the size of a raccoon, and they look like a raccoon in the water. But it was amazing because as I'm stripping the fly in, the hair, the material puffs up.
Yeah.
You could see the material on the live scope puff up. So you'd strip the fly and stop it, and you would actually watch the fly on. It was like,
Wow.
at that point I was like, yeah, I need one of these. So,
I know last year my brother and I were fishing, and he doesn't have live scope on his boat anyway. And I had him come up front and said, I want you to watch this. Look at the jig out there. He saw the jig going down, sees his fish from off the bottom, comes up, looks at the jig, and then follows it back down and ate it. He says, I need one.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
yeah,
They're a lot of fun to fish with.
Oh,
they are.
there is. No question. But it still won't catch it.
Yeah.
Still got to be a good fisher.
Well, the good news for the fish is we are not. Well, Mark, do you got anything else to talk to our audience about before we let you go here? We're getting close to bringing on Captain Richard Brant.
Just with our new Navionics Garmin Navionics charts, that our new versions just came out now, come with the relief shading included, which is a big advantage. We see relief shading on that screen.
Gives you that 3D look. Yeah.
Last year you had to download it. Now it comes standard built right in the car. It's really
Cool.
Really.
Very good. He's Mark McEwen from Garmin. We appreciate you stopping by
Hey,
and
appreciate it,
chatting with
guys.
us. Thank you.
Good to see you, bud.
Do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Get
steer
that
it, Mike.
mic
There you
up
go.
there, yeah. All right.
Good.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thanks,
guys.
Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
I'll be coming down later.
Still got time to enter as we're getting into hour 2 of today's show. And again, just drop in that hashtag fishhawk into the comments, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. It'll enter you in there. It's only going to enter you once, no matter how many times you put it in. So all you got to do is put it there one time, and you are entered for the drawing. Let's bring on Captain Richard Brant. He's hanging out here in the green room. How you doing, sir?
What's going on, gentlemen? How are you?
Good to see you, man.
How you doing?
Good. Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's the show going for you so far?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I love this show.
Yeah.
You get a lot of trouble in this show.
Right.
You spend too much money.
Yeah. Keep your wallet.
Yeah.
Keep it locked up in the room, maybe. Yeah.
Leave it in
Yeah.
the car for sure.
Yeah, I was just kind of hovering around as the show was opening this morning, and there was a line all the way out to the street to get into this
Yeah.
place this morning.
Yeah.
It's buzzing, as we say in the hockey world.
It is. It's going to be a busy couple of days.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. A lot of seminars. A lot of gear to buy. A lot of tackle.
Yeah,
It's good. It's really good.
yeah, you're doing several seminars here at the show. Tell us about your seminar schedule.
I am doing a lower river, trout and techniques and trout fishing from a boat, like how to successfully target trout. I am a guide on the Niagara River. I fish upper Niagara and the lower Niagara, but my seminars are all in the lower Niagara. How to successfully target steelhead, lake trout, and brown trout.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I was doing the seminar, I was explaining to people how I rig my rods, from how I tie my egg sacs, how I cure my eggs, how I keep them natural, I dye them, what types of different hard gear I use, which is Yakima bait, bag lips I use a lot of the times. I make slinky weights, everything from boat control to weather, times of the year.
So you're probably pretty busy right now.
I am busy right now. Unfortunately, we have big winds today.
Yeah.
So it kind of put me out of the game for about a week. But
Okay.
yeah, I do have a very busy schedule. The fishing is phenomenal. It is unreal.
Have you guys had a good winter? I mean, overall, as far as fishing
really
goes?
good winter this year. Yeah, it actually wasn't bad. Last year we had a big blizzard. This year we didn't. So the water had stayed
We're gonna
pretty
drop
clear.
this on
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
too.
Sorry about that.
No, that's
No,
not
that's
you
good.
thing.
What were we saying? So the river's been really fishable. It was green for about the last 2 to 3 weeks. It's that pea soup Lake Erie green. The water's very warm right now. Usually it's 32 degrees. It's making skim marks. Right now it's 38 degrees. Steelhead are still very active. They're hitting like they are in the fall. They hit the fish, they hit the bait, they come right up to the surface.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so they're good and squirrely still.
Cool.
Well, tell me a little bit about fishing the lower Niagara. I know it's something you do throughout the year. What is that like? What are the seasons like as the year progresses?
So the Niagara River fishing we'll start with salmon. So the fishing in the lower river starts producing around late September, early October, and
Okay.
it'll run all the way through until about, I would say, the first week of April. And then
Okay.
once you about the second week of that, you're out in the lake trolling for spring kings, obviously.
Mhm.
As the salmon run in the river, they're obviously producing the spawn. Following that is the lake trout, then the brown trout, and the steelhead come in last. Pretty much nature takes its place. That's how it goes in order. They're all in there eating each other's eggs for competition. Right now we are in a prime steelhead month. February, it is unreal right now. It's double-digit numbers every day. It's a great time.
Tell me about, you said you're using egg sacs, but what is the fishing like? If somebody's going to go fishing with you? Describe to me what that day is going to be like. What are they going to be doing?
So what I ask people when they first get to the dock, I say, what do you guys want to target? Mainly, do you guys want to target steelhead, brown trout, or lake trout? Because you can catch all three right now. And we'll just narrow it down to steelhead because we were talking about steelhead topic. So I would run up into Devil's Hole. I would start from the farthest up the river and work my way down to the longest part of the river, which is the Niagara Bar. I would start up there. We would go up into the trip. I would point my boat into the current, drop my bow mount down, slow my speeds up and down, and I use a spinning rod, 7-foot medium action, 7-foot lead, size 12 blackbird hook with a ounce and 3/4 weight. And then I would put on a pink egg sac or peach egg sac, depending on water clarity. It also depends on that. I would have my clients drop it down to the bottom, and they just tick every once in a while. They want that single dish drag on the bottom. Straight up and down, though, you want your presentation as key as possible. You don't want your line slacking left or right, in front of you, behind you. You want it straight up and down. And like I said, right now the water's so warm that when they fish hit, they're so aggressive. Usually this time of the year, we have soft bite. You just slowly lift the rod up, and you'll see the rod start to bend. But now they're just hammering it. Before they even know it's a fish, they think it's a snag, it's a fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cool place. I fished the Devil's Hole once where it's pretty wild. So you go running up the river, right?
Go through the power
And
cords.
you go through the power and like you go down and it's like this giant whirlpool. It's like it's pretty unique.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
definitely gotta know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Devil's Hole. I don't recommend it to people that don't go. Let's go with somebody who has experience. Don't have to be a guide, as long as you know how to
Yeah,
navigate the waters,
right.
read the waters. It's not like you're gonna hit rocks. You just gotta watch. The water's constantly changing. Water levels
Yeah.
going up and down. Whirlpools are opening up constantly. But once you go up into the drift, it's pretty.
yeah, the whirlpools are pretty
Yeah, they're
pretty wild.
They're
Yeah,
bigger than this table.
yeah, they're huge. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yep.
So.
Tell me about. Sounds like if you're really on that vertical jig game, boat control has got to be just the number one thing there.
Boat control is my job.
Yeah.
So I try to watch all my clients on a boat. Watch if I have 3 or 4 guys, 1 guy, 2 guy. My job is to consistently watch his main line when the sinker's in there. And I got to know if it's going behind the boat, I slow the boat down, I turn the motor off, let the boat catch up. It starts picking up above, I hit it again.
Mm-hmm.
You want to try to keep your boat slower than the current's going. Keep your drift as long as possible. So your minnow or your egg, your bait is floating up into different water columns. You may be dropping your line down 20 feet, but I put floats in my egg sacs. Sometimes they're only 10 feet down.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends. I'm using a 7-8 foot lead some days.
What kind of boat setup do you have?
I have a ZV21 Nitro.
Okay, so a multi-species
I have a
style boat.
multi-species
Yeah.
DP
Okay.
boat. I used to
Okay.
have a Lund OB, but I switched to fiber.
Okay. Okay.
Just a standard bow mount all
Yeah.
on it.
Well, I mean I think that's the cool thing about this area is like it's a multi-species type fishery where like
Yes.
the boats that I own, you own, Chris owns.
Yeah.
I mean those are the kind of boats that you get your fishing out of. So it's
It-
well suited to a lot of different
This is
people.
what's nice about living in Western New York. I can go 20 minutes to Lake Ontario, catch salmon. I can go 20 minutes to Lake Erie, catch walleye and smallmouth bass. And then like this time of the year, both lakes, not really much going on. You got
Lake North River.
There's always a fishery within a 20 to 30 mile radius. Somewhere around here, you can always go after fish. It's hard to go.
Yeah, we were talking to Captain Lance Valentine last night. We were talking about how many times he's touching the buttons to keep that motor going. What do you think? How many times per minute are you tapping the buttons?
I got like a picture memory in my head. I don't even look at it. I just
Yeah.
feeling and touching. If you had to guess in a day, probably 300-400 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, constantly on and off. Yeah.
And that's just in order to get the bite. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, you do. Some days are different than other days. I mean, depending on what baits you use, if we're pulling quick fish or mag lips, I should say, we'll turn the boat on a complete 90-degree angle, kick the motor towards the actual main motor facing towards the wind, cast the lure out, let it sink to the bottom, and let the boat pull and do all the work. You just leave the rod down, and all of a sudden, it'll just hit it. The lure's digging into the bottom.
So you're not really trolling per se. You're just getting the bait down and you're letting the current do
Yes,
the
it's
work
all
as far as.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the fish. Kind of size structure we catching right.
I would say the average steelhead is between 8 to 12 pounds.
Yeah.
12 pounds might be on a little more on the heavier side, but our average fish is about 8 pounds for steelhead. Brown trout, they've been on the smaller side this year. We have a phenomenal brown trout number. Last year and this year alone, it's been a record year. I mean, if you don't go out and catch 20, 30 brown trout, I mean, they're smaller ones. They're 2 to 3 pound range. Lake trout, our biggest lake trout we reported was 30 pounds. They just grow. They eat so much. You can get a lot of big fish around here.
Yeah.
That's what's nice about our fish. The Niagara bar is right there. We have the Lake Erie water coming in. It's keeping the water warm. It's just habitat for bait. It's habitat for fish. It's a beautiful scenery. Yeah.
So those fish. Let's take a lake trout for example.
Yeah.
When is that fish coming into the river and when is it leaving?
Okay. So the leaving part's kind of a tough question because lake trout are more of a warmer water species. They're not as they don't get as lethargic, I should say. The lake trout will start moving in October following the kings. They're not laying their eggs. They're just eating up as much smelt as they can in the river, as much emerald shiners as they can. They're packing on the pounds. They're chasing the king eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Then I should say they leave the river. As I would go, I stopped catching with lake trout probably about March.
Okay.
And I had to target them out in the lake going into March. I think a lot of fish run out to the lake. They run deep water too. They go out to the big levee, we call it, out in the bar. And they'll go to that 190 foot of water.
All right. Tell me about the kings. I mean, when
About
people
kings.
think kings, they think we're going to go out in the big water. We're going to troll kings.
Okay.
You're catching kings in a very different way in the river. Tell me about what that's like.
It's tricky nowadays. we have a great fishery of phenomenal numbers in kings, but it's just there's a lot of pressure with a lot of boats. We would do the same thing. You could really only target kings when they're spawning up in Devil's Hole. The water's higher, the water's faster in October. They don't lower the water levels down like you do in November. There's a lot of people, there's jet boats running up in the river. We would do the same thing, a 3-ounce swivel with about a 5 to 6 foot lead, heavier rods, bigger bait casters, a lot of braid line, 2 or 3 ounce sinker to get on the bottom, and I'm using skate with an egg loop on there.
Sure.
Number what's it, size 2 owners hook I put,
Okay.
2 watt I should say, and that's unreal.
Yeah.
You hook them fish, especially in that fast water.
Right.
You catch a 12-pound king or a 15-pound mature king, it takes
Yeah.
a while to get that.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I don't really think of kings in the river. I mean,
Right.
I always think of them out on the bar, right? The
Yeah.
spring fishery and whatever. And it's like, until you said that, I'm like, oh, yeah, of course they're going to be there in the fall. I mean, yeah.
Area, the spring fishing for case is unreal. It's absolutely unreal. Our fall fishing is just as good. Them fish
Interesting.
always return to the river to spawn.
Yeah, of course,
Some
yeah.
are 2.5, some are 3.5, but most of the time after 3 years, we're running out to the river spawn.
All right, interesting.
All right. Jim Lemon checking in. Jim's a frequent viewer of the show.
Okay.
He says Lower River has a good population of walleye too. Is that something you go after?
Yes, it is. The lower river walleye numbers are through the roof right now. You can actually go out and target your 12, 13-pound walleye. Right now, again, this is a perfect time for it. You get a lot of them fish that you can even have they have GPS trackers in them. They will go from the Bay of Quinte, which is on the eastern end of Lake Ontario up in Canada. They'll run up into the Niagara River and they will spawn there and go back and live the rest of their spring and summer up in the Bay of Quinte, and they'll come right back. How we fish for them, you can vertical jig with blade baits. You can use bucktail baits, but we just use a giant emerald shiner and we drag the bottom in sandy bottom loons. It's our best spot to get up.
Okay.
Yep.
We had Captain Frank Campbell on yesterday, and he's really known as, well, he's known for a lot of things,
Oh,
but
yeah.
one of them is bass fish, or being a bass fisherman, and he's like the smallmouth population is just through the roof in
Down
the
the
lower river as well.
Yes, it is. That really starts heating up around late April, beginning of May.
Okay.
It's just as good as Lake Erie. I mean, it's a little more trickier. There's definitely a different sport to it than going out in Lake Erie on a reef going after bass. It's a lot different. I'm not really big into it. It's just because that time of the year I'm out trolling on Lake Ontario,
Right.
where I am up in Lake Erie fishing for bass. I live 15 minutes from Lake Erie. I shouldn't even say 15 minutes. I live probably 10 minutes from Lake Erie, 5 minutes from the Upper Niagara, right down the street from it. I can walk out my house to see the Upper River.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question for you is, let's say I book a trip with you and we're gonna go fishing. With all this productive water surrounding you and all these different bites and all this different, how do you pick what you do in a day? I mean, you've got
Well,
world-class waters everywhere.
say you called me and you wanted to book a trip, so I would ask you, what do you want to target first?
Mhm.
And if you want to narrow it down to specific species you want to go after, we will go after it.
Okay.
So, say if you call me now, it's going to be a lower river. If you call me in May, we've got a lot of options. We got Lake Ontario, you got Lake Erie, you got the Upper Niagara, and still the Lower Niagara. It also depends on wind and weather.
Mhm.
If Lake Erie's howling, Lake Ontario 9 times out of 10 is flat. If the wind's perfect, if the wind's bad on Erie, which is the west wind on our end of the lake, Lake Ontario is fishable. Lake Ontario goes a heavy north wind, it's fishable on Lake Erie. So that's what's nice about our fishery.
Very good. We got a question coming in on Facebook from Glenn. Glenn says, what size kings do you predict this spring on the bar?
Ooh, that's a good one. It hasn't been a harsh winter last year or this year. There's a lot of bait around. I think a lot of these kings they're gonna be packing on the pounds pretty big right now. I would have to say your average fish this year is between 12 and 15 pounds, which is pretty good. I mean, you are going to get a couple occasional 20-pound kings in the spring, yes.
Do you see that, with being heavy early on, the amount of bait fish out there? I mean, this summer, do you think you're going to see bigger than normal kings once we get to the summer? They get that feed bag
I think we're
filled
going
up?
to I think we're going to have a big class of 30-pounders this year. I do.
Okay. Well, I just talked to you a few minutes about where to choose someone if a client calls you. How about you? If you could only
Yeah.
fish one bite, and it's like you get to go fishing one day a year.
You get to
I'm going to
fun
torture
fish.
you. You get one day a year to go fishing. Where are you going to go and what are you going to do?
I'm going spring king fishing.
Okay.
100%. I'm going out there. I shouldn't even say spring kings. I'm going after. I would probably prefer to catch the cohos.
Mhm.
To be honest, I love catching the little cohos in the spring. They taste so good. They're fun to target. They're like a school of piranhas.
They're psycho, yeah.
They are. They're like a school of piranhas. They're everywhere. and I like going after them. I use the Dreamweaver, what are they, a little 6-inch orange flasher.
The baby spin doctor
little
ones.
baby spin
Yeah.
doctors, the orange ones. And I put a little white peanut fly in the back of them on a 4 or 5 color LED. And just throw that behind an offshore board. You can't keep them things off. That's a riot. When you're sitting there looking down at your downrigger and you hear a rod ripping past your head, that's my favorite. That's probably my favorite. If you had to ask me, that's my favorite fish. Spring kings all day. And cohos.
All right. You talked a little bit about your boat earlier. How about electronics? What are you running for electronics in your boat, and why did you choose those?
I have 2 Humminbird Solex 12-inch on my screen, on my dash, because I run the Canon Optima riggers that link to my Fish Hawk and they link to my Humminbird.
Okay.
So if I have to get in a situation where it's very rough out and I can't use my bow mount motor on my boat, I have to steer it by hand. So I have to watch the rods, see what that Fish Hawk's doing, and instead of doing that, I turn around and look at my graph. Everything's linked to my graph. I don't have to keep running the back of the boat to check so and so. Or if I'm on this rigger, I need to bring this rigger up against a fish. Or
You're standing at the helm, controlling the boat in that situation where you're not leaving the helm and you got all your information in front of you at that point. Yeah, that's the whole idea with that system, right? Is to be able to really access the information anywhere in the boat.
Yes.
So what's your, you get out there, you told me about your co-host setup. What does a spread look like for you when you're going out kingfishing in the spring?
In the spring, I run mostly mag spoons in the spring.
Okay.
We do have a darker, cloudier type of green water in the spring. It's warmer, fish are a little more active. It's harder for them to see as well. So I run bright green spoons. The cloudy days, I run black spoons with bright white eyes. I would run 2 riggers, 2 lead core, and 4 wire dipsies. And I don't put no flasher flies out or kings. Now for a coho, it's a little different. Like I told you, I'm putting the little 6-inch spin doctors out, but those are mostly on lead core. I'm just targeting kings. You came out with me and you said you want kings and you want to try to avoid the cohos as much as possible, which cohos will eat the spoons.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Heavy spoon program,
Heavy
though.
spoon program. Heavy spoon. 6-8 rods out that are all spoons.
Okay.
And mostly, honestly, they're the green skirt. I use mag green skirts as well. I put little red eye stickers on the back of them. Change the hooks out, make them sharper. Every fish it hits, I check them, make sure they're not bent, make sure they're sharpened. But you really can't keep rods in the water long when you're spring kingfish. It's left and right.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal fishery.
All right. That's Ontario. We've talked about the river. We haven't really talked a whole lot about what you're doing on Lake Erie. If we decided we're going to go Lake Erie fishing, what's a day in the water with you on Lake Erie look like?
So I'm mainly a walleye fisherman when it comes to Lake Erie. I like to go out of Cattaraugus Creek, New York, which is down in Irving, Silver Creek area. And that starts to eat up as the big school walleye come from Ohio. They start heading towards our end of the lake, which I should say they're heading east towards us.
Yeah.
I go out there and I run a lead core program and I run a wire dipsy program. I would put out 6 lead core rods with stick baits all on them. I use Apollo Thunder sticks and Thunder sticks alarms. And then what else was I to say? I put the dipsies out there for walleye fishing. Lake Erie is phenomenal as well.
So you're fishing walleye usually a little later in the season?
Later in the season, yes. You can go out there in late May, beginning of June, but it's mostly nighttime fishing.
Okay.
That's what I actually do nighttime charters for people.
Oh, cool.
It's all rod in hand. And we're fishing
That's neat.
10 to 15 foot of water.
You're flatlining
You're
and
flatlining,
neat. That'd be
braid
fun.
rod.
Funk.
Yep. All you're doing is you're sitting off the side of the boat.
Yeah.
You count about 11 to 12 behind the boat, which is usually about 70, 80 feet. We're going about 1.5 miles per hour. You just let the lure just do its thing, and fish hits you. Just yank forward, and you're on.
The tug is the drug.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
We got a question coming in from Trad. And I think this is probably more related to the salmon we were talking about earlier, but what's your preferred length of leaders for spoons on your wire rods?
What is preferred length of
the leaders?
On the wire rods?
Behind the divers, yeah.
Usually 2 arm lengths. So that's 7 to 9 feet, I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Anything else for Richard?
I just, talking to everybody, I kind of want to go fishing.
I told you guys got a plan.
I know that's the thing. I mean, we're so fortunate because, we talk to guys like yourself, and it's like we get all these invites to go fishing, and we need to like make good on all these invites. I think.
Gotta start cashing some of these checks.
Yeah,
You guys got to come a day early. That's
right.
What
You're right.
Got to come a day early. So, thanks
Cool,
for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
You.
You can find out more about Richard. You go to his website. It's realactioncharters.biz. Captain Richard Brant. from Real Action Charters. And if you're coming down to the show, you can get a chance to talk to him. He's hanging around the show all weekend long. I saw Chuck Earls walking around here just a second ago. We got Chuck Earls coming up on the show next, and then when we see him walk by here again, we'll grab him. Let's talk a little bit about tonight. 5 o'clock, we're back on the air. Captain Vince Pierleone will be co-hosting with me, and we will have Shane Rubianis from Dreamweaver on, Brian Gamble from Gamble Rigs, Captain Chris Ingalls from Tangled Tackle Fishing, Captain Rob Mallory, and Captain Nick Glosser. So a real big show coming up here tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 o'clock Central. So if you want just a bunch of salmon guys, I know we got a lot of salmon folks out there in the audience. Oh, here's Chuck. Come on over.
Do it.
We're ready for you.
I think I'm gonna hang the mic right away since that
Let's
seems to
just
be
hang
the.
the mic on.
Yeah, we'll hang the mic. Take this. Oh,
No,
leave
we'll
here.
just use that.
Leave that
We'll
right
use
there.
that, yeah.
Oh, perfect.
I'd go higher,
Yeah.
Trevor.
Right there.
Yeah.
There we go. Rock on. Let's do it.
How you doing, Mr. Earls?
Pretty good.
Good. It's good to have you on the show for the first time. I actually saw you. I was looking up information on the World Predator Championships,
Okay.
and I saw your podcast you did
Oh,
with
with
Ryan
Ryan
Buddy. Yeah. So really good job on that. And first, we've got a podcast audience. Tell people about your podcast.
Well, the podcast basically is it's not only Lake Erie kayak fishing, it's also cool things that are happening in the community, like the 4-HC camp they do with the kids, and the Barbie's steelhead rod that brings in the funds for the Cleveland Fishing Fund and stuff like that. And I like to promote people, within the walleye world that are doing great things, like Ryan Buddy and some of these charter captains that they deserve a little bit of a push, because I think they're doing great things for the fishery and for the community.
Yeah, one of the things you do, and I've seen you here for a few years now, at least when I've been here, is you've got the kayak. You got the kayak set up right here, and
Right.
Lake Erie Kayak Fishing. That's your website, LakeErieKayakFishing.com.
Yep.
You got the USA Kayak Fishing hat on. Tell me about kayak fishing the Great Lakes.
Well, it can be a little challenging and a little intimidating, but with the right tools, the right experience, and the right knowledge, it's a great time, and it's an opportunity to experience this fishery with kind of like a lower entry point,
Yeah.
instead of like going out and buying a $150,000
Boat
walleye
right
boat.
out the gate. Yeah.
Right. And some people have both. They have the fishing kayak and the boat, and if they're just going fishing by themselves, they'll take the kayak because it's cheaper to run. It's less work. You don't have to worry about backing it into the water.
Yeah.
And it's like literally a different perspective. You're going from up here to like it's pretty intimate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I took my buddy JJ and his son out from Trollco. They're a bait painter, and they're walleye boat guys. Took him out there, and he hooks into this big sheephead, and he's just over there like screaming like a little girl, having the best time of his life. I pulled over, and he's like, "Man, this is the funnest sheephead I've ever caught." Towing him around on the kayak, and it's just it's a totally different experience than fishing in the boat.
Yeah.
We were talking about it yesterday. So and you were kind of explaining to me how you've got a few different kayaks set up. So you get a group maybe of people that want to go out and do a kayak trip, and so you'll kind of lead those, and you'll give them a rundown of the boats, and then you guys are all fishing individually, basically in the setups. Could kind of tell people about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than like going on a charter boat. When the captain's doing most of the work because he has most of the knowledge. And a lot of the boat captains, they're sharing that knowledge with their audience and their clients and stuff like that. But that's basically what my trip is like come out, get a complete crash course from beginning to end on how you do it, whether we're trolling or whether we're jigging or casting or even drift fishing. And we do troll a lot, especially when the walleye are moving. It allows you to cover a lot more water and find the fish. And just be productive on the way to the fish where you're casting. But it's totally different because when you're in your own kayak, you're responsible for everything. You're responsible for your leads, your program, your speed, your direction, your angle. If you're making, some S turns to create some different action down there, that's all on you. So they're really getting that crash course without even realizing it, and the full trolling experience along the way.
Yeah.
You know, and then when we find a nice pot of fish, we'll stop and cast on them. Usually I'll give them like a casting rod and then throw a second rod out with like a bottom bouncer, with like a worm harness or a spoon, or even a shallow diver.
Yeah.
Let that shallow diver just tick down there, and just, you know, kind of open them up to everything that the fish has to offer.
And that's what you were explaining. Like you're using all the same rigs that, you know, somebody in a traditional boat is using for the most part. You know,
Right.
as far as techniques and everything else, you're kind of replicating that just on a different, you know, from a different craft, really.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the only difference is like the 50-50 method on snap weights.
Yeah.
We don't use that because if you think about it, you have 250 foot of line out on a kayak.
Yeah.
You hit a wave or you hit a wind. Now you have all that slack in your
Oh,
line.
sure.
You know, with the boat, you have that weight that's giving you that momentum. It's keeping your line tight. So what I like to do is I split the difference. So I'll do like a 25 foot and then a 2 ounce snap weight and another 25 foot. That way it's a shorter lead.
Okay.
And that estimated gets me somewhere, I'm guessing like 12 foot.
Okay.
You know, I'm usually getting those fish in the 12 to 20 foot range.
Okay.
If I want to go deeper, you know, I can do a little bit longer leads, or I can just add, you know, more weight, like a 3 ounce or a 4 ounce or a 5 ounce.
Yeah.
And then I don't have all that line, number one, that I have to keep tight, bring in.
I mean,
just makes it a little bit easier for the kayak perspective.
it kind of stands to reason too. I mean, your boat presence is a lot, you know, smaller than what, you know, a big boat coming with a, you know, outboard or whatever, you know, roaring overhead versus, you know, you're pretty stealthy, you know, where,
Right.
you know, do you think that makes a difference? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have to run boards to get the presentations far away from the boat like the boat guys do.
okay.
But you know, if you're running 3 lines, it can be somewhat challenging.
Sure.
I'm running a 8'6" Okuma Classic Pro rods, the medium lights.
Okay.
Again, the medium light is because it's easy for that fish to move my kayak. I don't want to have too heavy of a rod where now it's fighting the kayak and not fighting the tackle.
Okay.
You know, so I go a little bit lighter. Plus, it's funner catching.
And that's with line counters or spinning rods,
Yeah,
or
with
with
line
line counters? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I use the Okuma Classic or the cold water 203.
Cold waters. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. And they work real good.
Cool.
Well, one of the things that you said was it's up to you. I don't have anybody else in there. It's a one person show.
Right.
All right. So we catch a fish. We're reeling the fish. We're netting the fish, and we probably have 2 other lines out, for sure 1 other line out.
Right.
How do you do all of that at the same time by yourself?
Well, for inexperienced people, I'll just give them 1 rod.
Yep.
Okay.
Just to start out.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I want them to focus solely on what that rod's doing. You know, the action of the rod tip, the way, the angle that the line's going in. I don't want them to bounce back and forth, you know, because it's taking their focus away. Once they get the feel for that, I'll throw a second rod on there. But at that point, they have the understanding of controlling where that line's going and paying attention. So they're less likely to suck it into like their pedal drive, or even the motor.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah, because you've got some powered kayaks as well. You've got some, you know, with electric motors on them, right? Yeah.
Yeah, with the electric outboard, the Torpedo.
The Torpedo. Yeah.
It's about a 3-horse equivalent.
Mhm.
It's me going about 6.5 mile an hour.
That's cooking.
So
Yeah.
Covers water, but you know, most importantly, we're going about 2 miles offshore with clients.
Okay.
Well, on
That's
a
what I was going to
kayak-
ask you, how far out you're going. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
On a kayak, you know, consistently you're going to move about 2 miles an hour. You can go
Okay.
faster. Can you do it for long distances? You know, not really.
Sure.
So being 2 miles out with clients, I don't have an hour to get them back if there's some kind of an emergency.
Sure.
You know, so the Torpedo Ultralight allows me just to hook up to them. I can have them back to shore and, you know.
You're towing them?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And most of the time, I mean, all of the time up until this point, I'm just towing them at the end of the day because they're tired. You know? And we had a good day. I'm like, hey, I'll save you the pedal back, you know,
That's
if
cool.
we're in the pedal drive and just tow them back.
What do you see like who does this appeal to? Like if somebody hasn't done this before, like what kind of anglers do you see? I mean, is this people that are, boat anglers that want to try something different, or is it new anglers? I mean, is there any kind of trends or?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. You get people that are adrenaline junkies and they just want to go out on that big water experience and
Sure.
get the adrenaline that comes with it.
Yep.
You have people like one gentleman I was talking to right before I came. He had a long riveted boat that ended up leaking, and it got the insurance totaled it out and everything. But he's looking to get into kayak fishing because one of the best times in his life was fishing on that boat with his son. So he's trying to decide, I don't want another boat,
Sure.
but I want something that I can get in, get out, and enjoy that with my kid.
Okay.
So he's looking at the kayaks. And then you have retirees that don't want to go out and spend all that money on the boat. They can get into a kayak for cheap and not have to, spend their retirement money on
Yeah.
fuel and stuff like that unnecessarily.
Like, what have you seen? I mean, you're kind of a pioneer in this. I mean, what has the growth trend been? I mean, I know like kayak fishing in general, just nationally, has been, it's grown dramatically. What have you seen like specific to the Great Lakes?
There's definitely a lot more kayak anglers on Lake Erie now. We even have, like the Lake Erie Walleye Trail, the kayak division, which, it's a little bit smaller group of guys, consistent guys that show up every time. But it's definitely growing a lot in this area.
Okay.
And especially this area. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I came down is, the growth in the kayak industry or the kayaks in this area fishing, off of Lake Ontario or in the rivers.
Right. I know safety is a huge factor. I mean, what are kind of your, rules of the road, so to speak? What are the like safety precautions that, you have to follow every day?
Right. There's not a lot of requirements for kayaks as far as the Coast Guard's concerned. They make you have a life jacket on board, and at nighttime you have to have a headlamp or some kind of light that you can signal if there's going to be some kind of collision or something like that. With that being said, anybody that comes out with me has to wear their life jacket. We don't. There's no partying or anything like that out there. You are in your own vessel. You're the captain of your vessel, which means that you're responsible for,
Your own safety.
Your own safety.
Yeah.
Does anyone ever look at you and go, I am the captain now? I would do
don't think
that.
so. But that,
Yeah, you would do that. Yeah.
that would be great. Make a great video.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point. Obviously, like I'm taking people out to catch fish, to teach them how to fish. But it's kind of a self-imposed job. I have all the safety knowledge, all this knowledge to keep me safe out there. So that's the stuff that I try to pass along on my trips, because it's not like they're going to come out with me every year like they do with the boat guys.
Sure.
They don't want to buy a boat. They go out with the charter captain. These guys, they're really coming out for the fishing experience and the safety experience. And then once they get that knowledge, they're going to go out by
They're going by their own.
Yeah.
They're going to go buy their own equipment. I know your own personal boat is just down the way here, rigged up, and you've got the strobe on there as far as the strobe light goes for visibility, the flags, everything in there. Where and then I noticed it looks like you always have your VHF radio handy too. Yeah.
I also carry a personal locator beacon with me.
Okay.
I have a little pocket air horn.
Okay.
Coast Guard requires to have a whistle.
Yep.
But what boat on the Great Lakes
Sure, is going to hear a whistle. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a little pocket air horn that I carry with me. And along the way, as we're fishing, I'm teaching this stuff to my clients while we're out there. The weather conditions, maybe something that I can point out, like, look at this situation. Here's what you want to pay attention to.
That actually, that makes me curious. So, like, what's the most weather you can fish in comfortably? I mean, as far as like wave height and everything goes, I mean, what's comfortable out there where it's not extreme or anything like that?
I mean, it really depends on the style of waves. Obviously chop can be a little bit challenging.
Okay.
When you have like that bathtub effect. But I've had the big water, not this one, but the one I had last year with the walleye rat. I had that out. It was probably 6 to 7s.
Wow.
But it was
Seems a little extreme to me, but yeah,
from
okay.
the Northeast for like 2 days.
So kind of rolling
It was
waves,
big
yeah.
waves, but they were
Far between,
7,
spaced
8,
out.
8
Okay.
seconds apart.
Okay.
Not really like I wouldn't take clients out anything over like 2 foot unless
Okay.
they requested that.
Yeah.
They wanted to come out and get that rough water experience.
Okay.
But that's the biggest that I've been in.
Okay.
And it handles it really well. Obviously you want to make sure that you're prepared for
Yeah,
the water
course.
conditions.
Of course.
And one thing that I use in that situation, and it's a good thing, is I always travel into the wind. So I'm heading out, I'm traveling into the wind and the waves. If I get sick, something breaks, that wind and the waves is going to push me back to the ramp. I'm not going to have to fight my way
Fighting
back.
your way back.
And there was a day, actually, that day we were out in the 6 to 7 footers. Just finished up the Cleveland Boat Show, 4 days there, so we weren't eating real good. And then the next day we went out of McGee East, stopped at a pizza place out there. We had pizza with onions and yellow peppers and
Where's this
So
going?
you're telling us you got the poison out of your body on the way back.
so I ate half that pizza. The next morning I had 3 more pieces for breakfast, and then we went out in those conditions.
Yeah.
And I was fine when I'm going full speed with the torpedo, having a blast on those waves. But as soon as I slowed down, everything started kicking up. I experienced seasickness for the first time.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Pretty bad, And,
Yeah.
and I looked at my buddy and I'm like, man, I'm glad you were out here. He's like, dude, your plan to travel into the wind and the waves is what saved you.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in a condition where I could really paddle. I had the pedal drive, I had the motor. But the way that the motor was set up, it had a little bit of play. So the waves picked it up and put it on the inside of my stopping point for the steering. So my motor was just 90 degrees, couldn't use the motor. So I put my pedal drive in and I used my paddle as the rudder.
As the rudder. Wow.
In between stopping and chumming the water.
Yeah.
And then laying my head on the seat to
Well,
recoup that wind and the waves, and that's how you want to plan your trip.
Yes.
I would.
How was the bite that day?
Terrible.
I would call that a pro tip. When that's
Yeah.
Don't pound an entire pizza, prior to going out in big water.
Yeah, you don't realize how that stuff affects you, like
Right.
what you drink, or you eat some spicy food or something like that, and it turns up your stomach, and that just makes it a bad day.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
that's
valuable
a valuable lesson too.
yeah.
So I carry like Pedialyte powder packs with me. Anybody gets seasick or something like that, I always have water. Throw something in there. Nothing brought me back like Pedialyte.
Yeah. That's a
so
good pro tip.
just carrying stuff like that. Maybe some snacks. Always water.
Yeah. Question up here. Try to ask it. What size kayaks are you using?
Right now I'm in the 12.5 foot Native Slayer Max.
Okay.
I will be transitioning to the new Native Titan X, which is also a 12.5 foot. As soon as that comes in. Before that, I was in the Big Water 13.5 foot.
Okay.
Which does great.
A little longer, narrower hull, or?
Yeah, a little bit longer, a little bit narrower. Really, I would say 12 foot minimum.
Okay.
There are some 10 foot platforms that do pretty good, like the Old Town 106 pedal drive. I've had clients take that out there, and it handles really well. But when you get like a small recreational boat that's 10 foot, it's not going to handle well. It's not going to track. It's going to be all over the place.
Sure.
And most of the time, those recreational boats, if you take a water over the side, it's going to flood the boat. So having some kind of bulkheads or something like that.
Okay.
If you are going to go that route.
All right, another one here from Jim. Jim wants to know, how do you stagger your lines to avoid tangles in a kayak?
So what I do, I have my rod holder sitting out like this, and my rods are 8.6, and they're sitting on the rod holders long ways like this. So I have about 20 foot of spread, 20 foot of spread there, and then I put my third line right down the center.
Yeah.
And one way I keep them apart, I'm always running different programs. If I'm running a short lead on my left side, I'm running a long lead on my right side, so that's going to be a lot lower.
Yeah.
And if I'm running my center line, I try to make sure that my left and right lines are going deep, maybe on like a snap weight program.
Okay.
And then I'll run like a
Flat
shallow,
line or something on the back.
flat
Okay.
line
That
out
makes
the back.
sense.
I have used like planer floats or planer boards.
Mhm.
Planer boards are kind of a challenge because you're facing forward, you're not facing the boards.
Yeah.
And you only have one on each side, so you can't really see that board, move out of
Okay.
position.
Yeah.
So it's real hard to identify the bite. But it's a ready rig planer float, which it has a swivel that connects to the line and then fingers. So when you get a hit, it pulls out of the fingers and then that just slides on there.
Oh.
No restrictions, so you can actually feel the fish.
Interesting.
With those, that you can get it away from your boat and actually identify the bite. And then you don't have to bite the board on the way in.
Yeah. Interesting.
Very good. Anything else you got for us before we let you go today?
Oh, we can talk all day.
You guys want to talk for a second? I'm going to go see if I can find our next guest. He's not hanging out in the green room.
Okay.
So I'm going to go see, and you guys can chat it up here for a few more minutes. I'll be
Yeah,
right
sounds
back.
good. Yeah, so I stopped by your booth yesterday, and what caught my attention, of course, is you had a fishhawk mounted on the bow.
Oh, yes.
That's pretty cool. It's like you don't see that every day. How do you actually use the fishhawk in a kayak? I mean, how does that work?
Well, especially with trolling, it definitely makes a big difference in the current, to identify it. Really, the reason that I got the fishhawk was so that I could teach my clients on how to read their rod tips. That way they know, is my bait doing the right speed? Does it have the right action? So if I'm teaching them how to read the rod tips and I can drop that fishhawk down and say, look, now you understand you have a mile-an-hour difference between your surface water and your water underneath. That's why your rod tip.
Yeah, so you're doing the same thing that we're doing in the boats. You're just doing it in a lot closer, sitting on the water essentially. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
And with this one, I have it on the bow, so it's not going to get wrapped in my
Sure.
motor back there or in my lines or anything like
Sure,
that.
so you can net fish and you can do all that.
Right.
You can do all that stuff. Yeah.
And with the
Yeah.
kayak, like a lot of times I'm changing directions a lot.
Yeah.
So some days I'll just leave that thing down there. I know some guys drop it down there, get
Sure.
the reading, pull it back up.
Yeah.
But I'll leave it down
Just
there
leave it down.
just so I know, especially on a tournament.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't. Those little things really make a huge difference.
Yeah, well, that was one of the, when we designed the X2, we, that's what one of the things we designed it for was we were getting some requests from, kayak anglers like yourself. So it was cool. Like I say, I don't see that every day. So that was pretty neat to see and just talk to you and see how you're actually putting it in practice. So
Right.
So cool. Chris, you got her set here, bud?
So here we're
I saw Donnie up there in the green room. We're getting ready. So yeah, no, that's neat. When do you guys start in the year? I mean, like when do you start your your season as far as your guiding season goes?
I'll fish all year long.
Okay.
As long as there's not ice sheets on the water.
Okay.
With ice sheets, that creates a totally different situation. You go out, you launch, it's clear, you come back, and you have a mile-long sheet of ice in between you and the
Yeah,
launch.
that's not cool. Right.
No. But we do go out all winter long. Dry suits are required, though.
Oh, really?
From October 15th on average to May 15th. Water temperature is below 60 degrees, which is extremely dangerous and very deadly.
Okay.
So wintertime, dry suits are required. Summertime, obviously, we don't need dry suits.
Yeah.
So that's where most of the trips are.
Okay. Makes
There's
sense.
some hardcore guys that just got a dry suit and they want to come out and experience that winter fishing situation.
very good.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you coming on. Good to have you
Really
on the
nice
show.
really nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Appreciate it.
Chuck Earls, LakeErieFishing.com is his
Got
website.
Mike here.
Pull that off you, and we'll bring in Captain Don Ruppert.
Awesome.
Captain Don,
Have a good one, guys.
we're ready for you, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Hey,
Captain Don Ruppert.
get you mic'd up here real quick. There we go.
Guys,
How you doing?
things are good. How are you?
Good. How's the show going for you so far?
You know what? For expanding to a 4-day show, it's really been good. Even Thursday was good. It's been busy.
Yeah.
Been good.
So you're working over in the Okuma booth. What's going on with Okuma this year?
You know what? There's some pretty fun things coming from Okuma. We've got a couple new reel launches coming up at ICAST this year. Expanding on our vector and our cold water line. Cold water's really got some really nice new upgrades to it.
Yeah.
Drags and just better features, a little more sturdy, higher end.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's coming out. We're coming out with new reels, or pardon me, new rods. We're kind of consolidating our blue diamond and our white diamond into the diamond series. So
Okay.
bringing back some models, that 9-foot model medium, which is so popular for both walleye and salmon guys. That's coming back for Okuma. So
Mhm.
some fun stuff coming.
Cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that real quick before we get in. We got a bunch of stuff we're going to talk to you about today.
Sure.
It's going to be a very packed 20 minutes, but if someone's looking to outfit their boat to do some salmon fishing,
Mhm.
what would you recommend to them for reels?
You know what? I think if you're going to go on the salmon side, the cold water is our high-end reel right now. That's going to have the best drag. It's going to have the best bearing package. It's robust. It's going to handle everything the salmon's going to give it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can certainly roll that over and fish the walleyes with it. So I would always gear the guys up with the cold water stuff. The 30 series and the 45 series would probably be the two options, I would say, to have most guys consider, because that's going to cover most of the applications. That's going to be from your downriggers to your dipsy divers to the copper that the guys will run and lead core and things of that nature. So those two reel sizes in the cold water would be the best place to start.
All right. Let's say I want to go fishing Eastern Basin walleye fishing like you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what reels should I be looking for?
Yeah, the nice thing is the same reels are universal. It's just how you set them up for the walleyes will be a little bit lighter.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if you use that 30 series for the dipsy divers, we would just load that up with 30-pound braid, and that's going to handle all your dipsy diver type stuff. You can run that same rod on your downrigger with a fluorocarbon top shot leader.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the 30s will work very well for lead core with 1 to 5 color.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you wanted to go deeper as our summer progresses, we would go to the 45. That would cover your 6 to 10 color lead
Mhm.
core. So again, those two reels are universal for both the salmon guys and the walleye guys.
All right. How about rods?
Rods, personal preference on rods, but I would say to most guys just getting set up that fundamentally that 8'6" medium
Mm-hmm.
is going to be the most universal rod. You can do everything with that. You can downrig, dipsy, lead core, everything fits well on that 8'6", especially with our Deadeye series. It's a telescoping reel, or rod, pardon me. Fits well on the guys that are running smaller boats for storage, but you still get the length that you need.
Mm-hmm.
Us personally, we like an 8-foot rod on our downrigger, medium light. It's a lot of fun when that fish releases that rigger and it's just you with a nice light rod. It's a lot of fun that way.
Mhm.
Certainly not robust enough to run that for a dipsy diver, so we use that 8'6" medium. The 9-foot rod that we talked about earlier that's coming back from Oklahoma, that's my favorite rod for dipsy divers. That 9-foot medium's just got the right action. It's got a very nice fast tip. You can see subtle bites, especially on Lake Erie when you have some non-target species or small fish. You might not see it on a heavy loaded salmon dipsy rod very subtly, so you can pick that up. So.
And you're running braid on you're not using wire or anything on your walleye rods or anything?
You know what? That's a great question. Actually, 90% of the dipsy applications are going to be braid.
Mm-hmm.
Downrigger will be braid. We do run wire, and there are times we find that, man, some days I've fished, I don't know if it's harmonics, but them fish do like that wire.
The walleyes too.
The walleyes too.
Really?
Very much so. Yeah, we do see it. And a lot of it we found seems to trend towards water clarity. When we have stained water, that wire dipsy seems
Makes
to
a
do
difference.
better. When we have clear water, that braid dipsy.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that before on walleyes. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's talk a little walleye fishing. I know you're on the Eastern Basin. What do you see this year as far as the season on Lake Erie?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, if you look back to when your granddad would say, "Oh, the good old days are right now."
we hear that quite a bit. Yeah.
But no, we look at just the quantity of fish and the size of the fish over the last 3 years.
Mhm.
Just phenomenal. And the health of our fish, just second to none. Our class of 3 to 5 pound walleyes are just booming right now. I mean, we're looking at close to 90 million walleyes from Detroit River to Niagara River. And the population is there. But the size now and that we're fishing, we would have that cookie cutter class of 22 to 23 inches. Well, them fish are now becoming an adult stage, and we're getting into that 4, 6, 7 pound class. So not only are we catching a lot of fish, but the size of the fish are there. And the best news is the fish coming behind this class are there. So we have a lot to look forward to for sure. And we have our bait, forage base has never been better. Our smelt is back, our emeralds are back. You're seeing it with what the fish are, giving it back in the live well, but you're seeing it on the screen. We're marking bait again, which, 5 years ago, it wasn't that easy to do.
So you've got good recruitment. You've got a good forage base. Where you are on the lake, though, the fish are coming from the west.
True.
So how does that migration work, and what are the kind of seasonalities on this Eastern Basin? And how does that make it challenging for a guy like you?
Well, we look at our walleye population as really two separate populations. We have our resident fish.
Mhm.
They never leave the Eastern Basin. They're structure related. They're with us all year. And as you mentioned, we have a tremendous amount of migratory fish that come from Ohio. And when we don't get ice, a lot of that is accelerated. So they come down early because it's based on water temperature. And without the ice cover the last few years, we seem to get them early. We're starting to see that arrival late June, which sometimes we wouldn't see that till late July. It sounds like only a month, but it's a pretty big chunk of
Big
the
window,
summer.
yeah,
big window.
right, yeah.
So we're getting those fish earlier, which really makes for a nice blend of fish for the guys. Whether you're tournament fishing or a charter captain, but for the recreational guys, they can go out and come home with a box. They'd love, everyone's proud to say they boxed out, and it's offering that to the recreational guys. Yeah.
Cool.
You have a lot of different ways to target walleyes. Tell me about kind of how you target walleyes when you're out with your charter class.
Yeah, it's with the season, of course, when it just kicks off, we're relatively shallow. We're doing a lot of bottom work, 30, 40, 50 feet. A lot of stuff directly on the bottom. Thermocline hasn't structured yet, but so we start there in May and June. But generally, when we get the third week of June and the rest of the summer, we're offshore. And the Eastern Basin is the deeper end of the lake, so we're getting into the dipsy divers, a lot of lead core. But downriggers are coming into play again, too. They're not, we used to consider downriggers a glorified rod holder because they would just never really use them, but people starting to put them into the game. So overall, it's a trolling program for certain, and lead core is probably the best. I would say lead core does 80% of the work for us when it's coming fish count at the end of the year.
Are you pulling spoons? Are you pulling worms? What are you pulling?
We're 95% stick baits.
Okay.
5% will be worm harnesses. There's a window, and it comes up every seems like 3 weeks of summer. If they want meat, they just want the meat. And we're thinking some of that is translating into that being some of the migratory fish that are turning on to that bite. Our end of the lake, the spoon bite really isn't taking hold. There's guys that do fish it and catch it with spoons, but that's more of a Western Basin thing than it is on our end. And of course, we're the deeper end of the lake, so I think that has a lot to do with it. We're a lot more current. I think the way those baits react and that spoon reacts is interesting. Yeah.
What are your favorite stick baits?
I'll tell you what, if the guys haven't seen them yet, but the guys should be fishing yellows. It's Chris Yellowicki from Canada that makes the yellow stick bait. It is phenomenal. He did a lot of R&D on it, a lot of time and effort and investment, but it's a great bait. That does a lot for us. The classic bomber, long A bomber, still a staple.
Because you guys are using all shallow runners, right? No, not deep diving sticks. You're using
right,
shallow sticks, yeah.
And which kind of seems ironic is we're the deep end of the lake.
Yeah,
we're
right.
running shallows.
But you're running them on downriggers and leg core, and
that's right.
Yeah.
And if you look back at the bomber long A and you look at the Joe Ranowski's lure, right? All those are staple baits. So the right size, so that 5-inch matches the hatch sort of bait to our smelt base. But one of the things that we are seeing a significant difference is the patterns, paints, and what the guys are doing. Some guys say, "Oh, it's not about the color." It is absolutely about the color. You can have 5,000 lures on the boat, and we go back to very consistent baits. But some of the guys like Chris Yellowicki doing a great job, Rick Kalem from Kalem Baits. He's doing some custom baits, but definitely we're finding out certain color patterns are absolutely far more productive than the conventional bait.
So we're doing more than catching fishermen. We're catching fish too.
They're actually catching fish.
Yeah,
That's right, because there is that stigma of, oh my
Yeah.
God, we're here to catch.
Yeah,
Exactly. But one tidbit I'll share with the audience is when we look at lures, on our end of the lake, baits with big dots on them is a game changer. Whether it's identified as an eye or multiple fish together, small bait fish together, big dots on those baits are a noticeable difference.
Interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about, so you're running these shallow divers, you're running with dipsies, you're running with downriggers, you're running with lead core. Where are you targeting these fish in the water column where you've got these deeper basins, deeper areas to fish? In the spring, you're going from the bottom. Where are you going? Where are you targeting them once you get into the summer months?
You know what? That's a great question. And I think this is where a lot of guys make, I won't say a mistake, but just don't understand where to put their baits. Because we are on the deeper end of the lake, we absolutely get a thermocline set up every summer, sometimes multiple, 2 or 3 layers. And obviously that thermocline is really specific to water temperature, and the walleyes are absolutely responding to that. We'll mark fish on the bottom below the thermocline, and guys will fish it and pound that section of the water column and won't produce any fish. Fish are negative. They're in that cold water. So we're always fishing above the thermocline.
Okay.
So temperature, paying attention to temperature is paramount. Well, it's obviously exactly what, Fish Hawk is built for. There's a part of our philosophy that once we find our fish, the fish hawk is more important than our actual sonar. We need to keep in contact where that right water column is. And a lot of times our thermoclines are set up, we're so established, we can actually see our thermoclines on our sonar. And it gives a nice, easy target for the guys to start working with it. But I think what happens is the guys don't necessarily know where their baits are sometimes. Downrigger balls, you can identify where they are. But with that fish hawk, you can start to say, okay, don't go below this because the water was definitely colder. So I would tell anybody, focus on the thermoclines, focus on the temperature breaks.
And what is that number? I mean, I know walleye can function in a pretty wide range of temperature, but like what's your money number as far as temperature goes?
In the middle of the summer, we like that 65-degree mark. That separation is pretty good. Everything above that, they're going to feed on that 65 to 75. Those fish are active. If you're in that water column, you identify that temperature, and the fish are in that water column. Those are active fish. Those are the ones you want to target. So if you mark fish on your 30 feet, 35 feet down, the lead core program is very easy to identify and how to get there. So it's simple math.
And conversely, if you mark fish but they're in colder water, those aren't the fish you're gonna target. You're gonna leave those alone. Go look for some in warmer water.
That's exactly right. And we'll talk to guys dockside after a day, and I'll see them where they were fishing, and I'll say, you guys sat on the fish on the bottom all day. Yeah, we didn't catch a fish. Guys, that water's so cold, they're not going to be moving on you. I mean, you might get one or two, but you're not going to have that 20 fish day as you would if you were in the right water column.
Okay.
Well, these are all good tips for people who are going to come see you later this year for the Sunset Bay Walleye Shootout. We got to talk about that.
I got a good walleye shootout story.
All right,
so
let's have it.
I'm gonna share it because I haven't talked to you since I had it. So had a gentleman and one of my two gentlemen actually from, I believe they're from Tennessee.
Okay.
And they waited, I think they said 5 years to get a spot in the tournament. One opened up this year and they jumped on it. Let me tell you, these guys are stoked to come fish with you in July here. So
that's great.
yeah, I mean, it was pretty neat where that's like they're here this weekend to get ready to come back in July to fish your tournament.
Oh, that's great to hear. It's a very proud event. It's 14 years in its making. We have anglers from 26 states coming in and out of fishing. So we can say half the country's here in July to fish. It's always the third Saturday of July, July 20th this year. And I think it was Paul Davis from Tennessee that I think I recognize who. I think I've seen him.
Yeah, no, he's excited. He said it took him 5 years to get a spot. So
you know what?
And how many boats is it this year?
We opened up our fleet. We're gonna max cap it out at 200 this year.
Okay, it is 200. Okay.
So we do have a little room left. We're trying to expand it. Let some of the guys that have been on the waiting list. We've reached out to them, given them the opportunity, and so now we're at a point where, hey, if you guys want to fish it, we have some spots, and we kind of put it out there as a first come basis now, give everybody a chance. And but we found that 200 is going to be our cap, just from logistics of moving coolers and boats. But it makes for a great event. I mean, we had 1,000 guys at our captain's meeting last year.
Wow.
So
crazy.
But we timed it properly in the sense of our fishery. That's kind of, we talked about the migratory fish are generally here. Our resident fish are very active, so the fishing is very good. So everyone's really out there and doing fairly well, and it always comes down to that one or two fish in the box to make it look good.
And if it, a winning box, I'm sure it varies by year, but what's it going to take to win it this year?
I think this year, with the growth rate we've had and looking at years prior and where we are with the class of fish that are out there, I would say a 40 to 42 pound box or 6 fish is going to do it. So we kind of
7 pound.
That's a 7 pound average,
which is very doable.
Yeah, to a Minnesota guy, that'd be like a lifetime. That'd be like the day of a lifetime there. So.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's impressive, and we're very for the tournament itself. We do an interactive live weigh-in. We have a very unique venue right on the beach, right along the edge of the little lake, and it's beautiful. We bring a stage in, and we do a hot seat format where essentially the leading team is sitting on some elevated stools, and then they stay there until someone bumps them off weight-wise, and essentially last team standing wins it. And what we've done over the years, if we know that Tom Smith has a big box, we kind of hold him to the end and the excitement. And it's to see the emotion with the anglers and the high fives and the man hugs and the crying, and you look out and you see 2,000 people in the audience watching. It's really, really cool. Very, very fun.
And you guys have a heck of a prize package. I mean, this isn't you're going to win $200 to win the tournament. I mean, you guys really, there's a reason why these people want to get in this tournament.
Yeah, we appreciate all level of anglers, right? So we also understand that some guys are coming a long way. It'd be fun for them to win something. And if they win something, we want it to be significant. We don't want them to just say, hey, there's 2 lures, thanks. No, it's kind of, we want everything to be significant, to be appreciated. And we've been fortunate to work with so many great sponsors, you guys included, that we have on our Friday night of the event of the tournament. We have 50 prize packs that go out. And basically every team, their poker chip goes in there, and it's just a blind draw. But fundamentally, 1 out of 4 teams is going to win something, and the minimum value is 500. The last 10 prizes are brand new motors.
Oh, cool.
Brand new motors.
That's why people want to get in this tournament.
Yeah, right.
So the guys will tell you it's almost worth it just to be in for the Friday night.
Yeah, it's a great raffle.
Yeah.
But then it does lead into Big Fish Friday, which is a warm-up day. You know, everyone's fishing anyway, so there's some side money there, and that pays very well. And then the main event is obviously where all the money's made. We pay the top 15 for the main event. We're going to pay the top 5 for the largest walleyes of that event, and it's stacked fairly heavy. We have a long list of Calcuttas. There's 4 normal Calcuttas, and then we have what's now called our big wave Calcutta, which is a $1,000 entry. And what's unique about that is essentially we do it in blocks of 20. So the first 20 that pay $1,000 for the big wave, that's the fleet they're fishing against. Unlike a normal Calcutta where you're fishing against the whole fleet of the tournament. For the first 20 boats, that's kind of a mini tournament amongst themselves. And then we just pay the top 3, 10,000, 6,000, 4,000, but you're only fishing against 17 up. And that became very popular. So the first year we did that, we sold out 20. Last year we sold out 40. This year we're going to do 3 blocks of 20. So
Okay.
a lot of money there.
So 3 different Calcuttas.
3 different Calcuttas on the big wave. One thing I'm very, very proud of and worth mentioning was we're giving away a brand new Skeeter WX Walleye Series boat this year.
Sweet.
So that's kind of neat. And the way we're doing that is, and that's a $125,000 boat pack.
Yeah.
Fully loaded, ready to go, ready to fish. And the way that's being given away is that Friday, Big Fish Friday, we take your team's way to that fish. We take the main box for the Saturday, and then we take the biggest fish of Saturday. Just simply add those 3 scores together.
That's going to determine your boat win.
That turns into a winner.
Wow.
So if you have that colossal, wonderful, you get.
So you could potentially, you're going to have to finish high on Saturday, but you could potentially finish 2nd or 3rd on Saturday, have a big fish on Friday, and still take home the Skeeter.
You're exactly right.
Pretty cool.
Pretty neat. We're excited about it. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. A lot of cool ways to win. And we look at if a guy does the all-in approach, where he's in the big wave Calcutta, he's in the normal Calcuttas, he has that big day on Friday, Saturday, and I mean he's looking $175,000.
Yeah.
Not a bad day.
Not a bad week of fishing.
Very good. If you want to know more about the Sunset Bay Walleye Shootout, you can go to the website walleyeshootout.com. Captain Don, anything else before we let you go?
No, guys, once again, thanks for having us. We always appreciate spending time with you. Appreciate your support of the tournament, and we're just very proud of the walleye fishery that's here and what's in front of us in the future.
Should be.
Yeah.
7 pound average. Yeah, you can be pretty proud of that stuff. Yeah.
Sounds really good, man.
Guys, thanks again for your time. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, take care.
Pull that mic up.
Oh, yeah, walk away with that on there.
Trevor, we got a fish hawk question that's been asked by Trad. Let's just get that taken care of. We're going to save you some money, Trad.
Yeah.
If I want to run a fish hawk on each rigger, do I need to run 2 transducers?
I would love to sell it to you, but it's a one and done, bud. So yeah, because the probes operate on the same frequency, there's really no way to run 2 units without that wouldn't interfere with each other and ultimately end up kind of messing you up. So
yeah, so it's a 1 unit system.
Yep.
As of right now, let's take a look at tonight's show. Before we do that, though, one last chance to get into that drawing. You're going to go ahead and put in #FishHawk. So we got 35 entrants right now. So if you want to get in, one more shot at it. Go ahead and put in #FishHawk. But this evening we've got Vince Pierleone. He's going to co-host. He'll be with us for all 2 hours, starting at 5 o'clock Eastern. And we got Shane Rubianis from Dreamweaver coming on, Brian Gamble from Gamble Rigs, Chris Ingalls from Tangled Tackle, Captain Rob Mallory, and Captain Nick Glosser. So
cool. Really
looking forward to that show. And if you guys are salmon heads, that's a salmon heavy show there.
That's a salmon show for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be the show for you. So let's go ahead and draw that winner. I gave everybody a last chance. Here we go. And it's going to be Martin John from YouTube. Martin, you're going to have to go over to our Facebook page and just send us a direct message on Facebook with your information, your address, and we'll get that package sent out to you once we get back home next week and get that going for you, Trevor.
Cool.
Anything else?
Day 2, man.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
We'll see you tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern. Thanks, everybody, for watching this afternoon. Lots more coming from the Greater Niagara Fishing